switch is at. Testing. Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, July 21st, 2026, and I turn the chair over to Councillor Herring.
All right, so we'll start with for the Committee of the Whole meeting and introduction of late items. Any late items for the agenda? All right, in that case, move on to the adoption of the agenda. Recommendation that the 2026 Committee of the Whole agenda be approved as presented.
So moved.
Mackenzie, Council Tindall.
By Mackenzie, by Frizzle.
Do we need to slow down now? Do you have the document by hand?
Okay. All right, so is there any declarations of known conflict of interest? Hearing none, we can move on to number 8, new business staff report, and I'll ask Brianne Court from True Consulting.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Afternoon.
We are going to be doing things a little old school, so if at any point you can't hear me well enough, please let me know as we go through the presentation. And the clicker isn't working either, so we're going to be doing next slide. The whole works. So we're going to get started here. So anyways, thanks very much. I'm here today to talk to you guys about the Clearwater zoning bylaw update. So Jenna, when you're ready, the next slide. All right, just starting off with a little bit of context and a brief update. Next slide, please. All right, so the zoning bylaw updates are underway. We're currently working to align the zoning bylaw with the recently adopted official community plan to bring those policy pieces together. And the zoning bylaw needs to be consistent with the OCP with regard to things like housing and land uses, how buildings are sited on properties, employment lands, the whole works. And so right now we're at step 4 where we're preparing the draft bylaw document. And today we're going to talk about a few things where we're looking for some direction and input from council. Next slide, please. All right. So the purpose of today's discussion is going to center primarily around 3 topics. One is the zoning for the town center that we created through the OCP with that new land use. The other is additional dwelling units and the policy around that. And the third discussion item is short-term rentals and policy options for that. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to jump in starting with mixed-use town center. This is our first topic of conversation. And I'm going to provide you some context as to what things are looking like right now, and then we'll open it up for discussion after that. Next slide, please. So currently the mixed-use town center has been identified in the OCP in the lands that you'll see circled there. Everything that's shaded purple, kind of a pinky purple on there, and I've used little arrows to point it out. And the zoning will follow the same land use polygons that were outlined in the official community plan. Next slide, please. All right, so purpose of this zone will be to accommodate the community's primary commercial, civic, and mixed-use area, and it's intended to serve as the central hub for businesses, services, and community activity. And next slide. So here's the exciting stuff. Here's our list of permitted uses in draft format. So none of this is set yet, but this is what it's looking like. So we've got quite a wide range in here. What uses you won't see are some of the more intensive commercial uses, things like service stations where we have other zones that accommodate those things like the C1 have been left out, but we've got assembly uses and civic use, childcare, mixed use dwelling units, so apartments and multiplex. And when I say multiplex, what we mean by that are like ground-oriented multifamily style developments, your townhouse type stuff, stacked townhomes, that type of thing. Entertainment uses, food and beverage, that'd be restaurants, bars, pubs, etc. We've included the liquor primary as an option as well. Mixed use, just meaning a combination of commercial and residential in one building. offices. Off-street parking, that just allows for a parking lot if one needs one, so that's been written in as a standalone use. We can chat about that if there's questions. Personal services, market, indoor recreation, general retail. Cannabis retail is written into this one, convenience retail. We've got short-term rental major, and I can discuss more about what that means if there are questions. Traveler accommodation, that's your hotel, motel. A veterinary clinic, and we've broken veterinary clinic in the zoning bylaw into two different forms. One is a larger format for like farm type animals as well as regular animals, and the other is just for smaller domestic pets, and that's what's in here. And then just accessory buildings and home-based business. And I'll just finish up this section, then we can get into discussion here. So if you don't mind, just the next slide, Jenna. Thank you. Lot size in the zone is quite small, and that's intended to allow for smaller commercial lots where if somebody wants to have a small CRU type use or stratify those uses. And then overall, we've got pretty high lot coverage and really minimal setbacks. And that allows us to bring the buildings kind of right up to the street to create that walking atmosphere where people can pop into shops and that general vibe. And I believe that might be the last slide of this segment. Oh, conditions of use. This is just the really exciting stuff where we talk about if you build a multifamily, what do you have to have for amenity space? This comes out of your existing zoning. We can play with this a little bit as needed. It just outlines some additional conditions that will go above on certain specific uses. And I do believe that was the last one. So Jenna, do you mind going back to the slide that showed the permitted use? Because I feel like there might be some conversation here. So I just wanted to open it up to council if there's any questions about the town center, what it's looking like so far, and what those uses are. For context, where you see short-term rental major, that would mean that somebody could rent out their entire apartment as a short-term rental unit, just for context. And we, yeah.
Include like individual apartment units or apartment building?
That's a good question. It would depend how we build our policy. So theoretically, I suppose if somebody built an entire building and they wanted it as a dedicated short-term rental building, they could. They could also build a hotel. So it's in keeping with another use in the zone, although they're different a little bit. We don't have any conditions built around that for how many units at this time, because we're going to have a more lengthy discussion about short-term rentals at the tail end of this, and I'm going to present a bunch of options. I think that those conditions of use could be ironed out as a part of that.
Where does it fit in? Like you see some other areas that develop tourism businesses, where the difference is between a boutique hotel and short-term rentals. Or hotel. I mean, there's three different distinctions in there. I know some areas have these boutique hotels with no staff. You can book online and you get a key or you get a punch number and go to it. Almost like a short-term rental, but does that apply?
It can get pretty blurry. Typically a short-term rental, depending on which definition we go with, usually there's a maximum length of stay, so it's not quite like a long-term, I rented out this apartment, I have a 1-year lease scenario. There's usually a max length of stay, typically 30 days, in some cases 90 days. Hotels are usually on the shorter side of that. Short-term rentals often will include a kitchen as well, although many hotels have kitchenettes too. So yeah, it gets blurry between the uses. And we can get, like I said, pretty deep into that and the conditions of use. We will be discussing that in greater detail coming up. But yeah, this zone currently, if this is the direction council chooses to go, does include that option for the short-term rental as well as the hotel motel.
I like 95% of this. I think the cannabis retail wouldn't be allowed under our current bylaw. Because if we're thinking about where we sort of hit on that circle around the school, I don't think there's anywhere in that zone.
Okay.
I'd have to see
We see the circle.
the actual circle for,
We can pop back to that one. That's
yeah. I
an
think
excellent point that,
it would be very limited
Yeah.
likelihood.
Yeah,
Yeah, just, yeah, no, 'cause probably
we'll scratch that one right off the list. Yeah.
for that, so, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that the future council might have to revisit anyways, because, yeah, we might be told to. Yeah, but as far as the rest of that, I think, for me, these are the kind of things that I would expect in the businesses to try to do with that sort of mixed zoning downtown.
Go back to that list.
To the list?
Yep.
There we go. Sorry, I know it's a bit hard to read. It was,
All good.
Include the requirements for sidewalks.
so that's not a part of the zoning bylaw. That would fall more under your subdivision development servicing bylaw. And or in addition to that, you could have more specific requirements for streetscape improvements if you decide to do either more detailed development permit area guidelines or a separate master plan for the area. Yeah.
Traveler accommodation is hotel, and short-term rental is in a living space.
Yeah. Short-term rentals like Airbnb, Vrbo, that type of an idea. It's interesting though, Councillor Matheson raised a good point. You go on to these platforms like Expedia and you have both options right in front of you. It's really changed a lot over the years.
So the off-street parking, basically a parking lot.
Yeah, it would allow if somebody needed a small parking lot area. That can be taken out. It's often included in downtown zones. However, given our smaller area here, it might not be a use you need.
Because that's not attached to anything, like it's not attached to an apartment building or a whatever, it's just
Yeah,
one.
It'd be in the business of having off-street.
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
The benefit to having it is that if you don't have it and you need to have a parking area, if you've got a bunch of shops set up and there's not enough street parking, it gives the option to have it. If it's not written in, it typically would not be permitted because it's not been identified in the list of uses. Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you were going through this, was there anything that you thought about but then didn't include? You thought, oh, just looking at that area and having been part of the whole OCP, was there something that you thought that might be interesting but didn't make the list?
It's a good question. I tried when I put the list together to think of all of the potential uses from those conversations that the community would want to see, that businesses would have opportunities to develop, and that could create a cohesive and compatible set of uses. Certainly it's a working list, and there's always the opportunity to tweak it further. Things like park are covered under the civic use group, so there is that flexibility to have public spaces addressed as well. But I'm certainly open to any feedback if there are other ideas or things that we feel might be missing that should be included. Or things that are included like the cannabis retail where we say, you know what, that doesn't make sense here.
No.
Yeah. Mr. Chair. So the one use that is a little bit conspicuous for not being there is single-family residence.
Yeah,
that's
what I'm trying.
Okay.
And it's good to talk about it, because often that will be where you get complaints later, someone saying, hey, I just want a single-family residence on this property. Although, probably not the highest and best use for it is what the zone is, right?
Mhm.
It is an issue where that will come up.
Put the circle back up so I can see that. Yeah, yeah, but I want to see how far that circle expands.
Well, it's a circle, but there's circles and area surrounding the actual zone. So it'd be Park Drive.
Are we able to go back to the map on the screen, please? Thanks. That's a great point, and that was intentionally not included on the list. The area surrounding, so the area shown in the purple shade on the map is what's intended to fall under the town center land use. So the intent in creating that was to have, as Byron was saying, like highest and best use. So that's where you would want to see your densest form of development within the community. And so that, in my professional planning, opinion and viewpoint, would be the area that we would want to focus on multifamily more so. Now, everything surrounding that, as we branch out, falls under a single detached urban style zone. So there are many lands around it that definitely accommodate single detached housing. But it's a fair point and one that's open for conversation, that might not be something everyone's agreeable to. And it's definitely a more urban approach.
So blue is school?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to get my,
Yeah.
where the heck am I?
You bet. Yeah, the blue is the school and the green is the park area. Yeah. Some fields, some playing fields. The recreation center. Isn't it? Okay, thank you.
So in the blue is the library, sports,
School, yeah.
so stuff that's basically
And then that's,
maybe get renovated or replaced over time, but is, that's what it is now.
right, no.
So, was that purple piece of land along Park Drive, the one that people like supposed to subdivide in the last? That's what it was planned.
Yeah, there's all of that stuff, not the little strips on Ronald Park Drive there, that's right on the corner there is. There's also the restaurant part of that. There's multiple private lots and there's lots of that. Right at the bottom of the center is.
So there's already been some interest in developing this.
Not necessarily for single family, for housing, yeah. I mean, there's been all sorts of different plans on that. Multi-family units in the same house. Or even on the same lot. Down to, like you said,
Which would be allowed.
Yeah, that would fall under the multiplex style classification, which is your ground oriented. So that's where you could see things, like fourplexes, you could see a small set of row houses, townhomes, any kind of form where you're looking at kind of up to 3 stories max, and then also your apartment buildings.
So with this, would that be like the side-by-side row houses?
Yeah.
Permissible or not?
Yeah,
The
it's
way you're
permissible, yeah. It's under multifamily, right? One standalone, no, but if you're coming in and doing a block of them, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, townhomes can be done. There's still housing in the zone, but it's housing in that denser format.
So I guess what I'm wondering is, and I think you said a good thing, which was, is this too much of an urban approach?
It's a fair question.
And,
Yeah.
and then you brought up, so maybe you can explain what the urban approach is and how successful that's being.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that I struggle with is, are families moving here to be in densified? Or are they feeling so grateful that there's so much land, their kids can ride their bikes, they can go, we've got a connected system, and is that how they see themselves? And when I
Yeah.
look at that corridor, is it just an extension of a nicer neighborhood, giving people that opportunity to have, family space?
I think it's a great point. I think there's a lot of land in Clearwater that also provides that opportunity because there are quite a lot of surrounding residentially designated properties. And I should have brought a larger overall OCP map or put the zoning map up, but there are a lot of surrounding lands. So I think it's a really great point, and I hear what you're saying, that that's not what necessarily the draw is. People aren't, running here to move into apartment buildings primarily. I get that point, and that's something council can take into consideration, certainly. But yeah, there is still the opportunity for that more single detached residential style all around this
Sure,
area.
but
Yeah.
also the way that our core amenities have also been focused, is that you've got families that would want to be able to have their kids be able to
Yeah.
ride to the soccer practice, to the ball practice, to hockey. I mean, how many times have we seen, hockey bags being dragged through the neighborhoods? Same thing with the schools. Whereas if you're looking at that other residential areas, it doesn't have that same walkability feature to it, and it doesn't have that same connection to community. So I struggle with this particular one, and I'm not sure we're that community yet.
Well, could we not put down, the option is to have the single-family dwelling as well as?
You can absolutely add it as a use. There's no problem doing that. If that's the desire of council to include single detached style housing, you can. The only thing to consider with that is that when you introduce that, do you want to introduce it throughout your entire mixed-use town center area? Because if we don't have any caveats on where it can go, and people do want to come in and develop more of those commercial mixed-use buildings, it can sometimes limit where those can go and limit the overall feel. So, you know, it's just a different approach. It's certainly achievable. It just takes a slightly different lens and maybe some consideration as to where you would want to see it or if you want to see it throughout.
Great. Go ahead, Bill.
To me, like, the L purple along the corner makes a lot of sense as like a commercial district where I can picture if somebody was to build a single family home right in the middle there, then the risk is, you've got some business fronts on either side of it. Even the setbacks being close to the road and stuff, it's gonna change what kind of housing it is too, I guess maybe some like a really good backyard or something, but the purple square off to the right is where I feel like that has potential as a single family neighborhood, especially with the pipeline through there in terms of like a walking corridor, so that's the part, for me, it feels different than that L purple around the corner.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from there. I also think there's
Oh, I knew that was going to happen.
You're working now?
No.
You're live, look at that. Hey.
Yep.
Okay. We're all awake now.
I think there's also a need, especially the younger generation, they're moving away from single-family homes and they're looking for affordable accommodation, and they're looking for the complexes and more denser housing, and I think, to me, it can go both ways, but I think valuable use for the land is densification with it, and looking at that market.
Yeah.
That's where my head kind of goes. There's lots of areas around this community for single-family homes.
Across the street.
Across the street, yeah. I mean, there's lots there, but to me, this is an area that, if you're talking about young families that need access to various things, walkability, densification, concentrating families in there, making it affordable for younger people, I think there's a bigger attraction for that, because the young people I talk to now, they're not interested in single-family homes. They're looking at affordable accommodation that it's going to suit their lifestyle, and they don't want to be looking after lawns, and they don't want a big acreage. So there's kind of a mix in there. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
And it's the only thing that they can build right now. It's usually in a partnership with BC Housing or CMHC in order to make it affordable. Their single-family, 4-bedroom project that they were working on, side project, their cost was $750,000 to build right now. That was just land and water. Did not include else. So the market here is going to really struggle with today's terms. So we're thinking in 5, 10, 15 year terms as far as here. The other thing that needs to be factored in here is this area is one of the few undeveloped areas in Clearwater, for the most part, that is on both water and sewer. Easily so that has to be another consideration. There's areas on the north side of the area that have to be as well, or land that fall into that category as well. But I mean, there's a ton of single-family lot properties all through Clearwater that where you can build a septic field or 2 septic fields. That land is all over the place here, and a lot of it does come from water and or fire protection through a hybrid system. There are very few places in this town that offer exactly that. Noting that you have to discount lots. So, yeah, I mean that should be a consideration as well.
So what did the data show in a lot of the OCP questions, the surveys? to me, this is a question, we're hearing it at the next meeting about an economic development survey. I mean, I just want to test that point, like
Sure.
what are people looking for? And I'm also curious about how it's been playing out in other smaller communities, because is it true that fourplexes are less expensive to build? Like, is that a true statement? Because there's I do want to know that for sure, because that's not always depending on the community, right? But this is a big decision to predict the future, gambling and then asking people, especially in a town like Clearwater, where roundabouts are like, that was like a modern miracle type thing. Like we haven't progressed. So what do people want when they look at a small rural town? Do they want us to be like other towns? Or do they want something different? I'd like to know from people who might be contemplating moving here, or people who have recently moved here and know people.
So, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
And given that, right, let's say a developer comes along, 5 years from now, we've got this zoning in place, there's no single family residence, and they decide they want to do a subdivision in purple of 20 single family units, and they decide they want to come to council. They could apply for a variance, and they could, and if we're like, oh, you know what, 20 homes would actually be worth doing there, then council could revisit that. This doesn't tie the hands of the council.
Certainly, yeah, yep. Yeah, there's always the opportunity to change the zoning on a site-specific basis if you want to limit it to that. What it does give council is a little bit more control over what goes in, what that form looks like, how you have a mix. The other benefit to having this in this area is that housing diversity piece. And during the OCP process, we heard a lot about there being a lack of housing diversity, not enough townhomes, not enough apartments, not options for people who are, say, seniors and looking to downsize out of their larger homes where they want to stay in the community. So that was one piece that we heard a lot. There's also the housing needs assessment that has identified the need for quite a number of new houses. We know that's an interesting one with the way that the studies are done, right? But yeah, it's a caveat there, but yeah, certainly this provides, speaks to that sort of housing diversity piece and would be a suitable location just given the infrastructure that's available in the area.
I think we should peg this one that council
Yeah.
is uncertain on this one and
Okay.
move on, because we're like halfway through your time on this.
Okay,
So
let's
not-
move
not to force this.
Quicker, yeah.
Can I just ask one more?
Yeah.
I think, and I can't find it here, and I didn't know we were going to bring it up, but in the OCP, I thought that there was something around the town center, is that the development needed a master plan. Do you remember something like that, Mr. Johnson? Or something in there, and I'm wondering if that applies to this area. And if it's a master plan, how is this all playing out when we're looking at?
So, we did state in the OCP that we would develop a master plan for the downtown zone. That is, it wasn't done concurrently with the OCP, it's on our work stack, it will probably be coming forward as a project for next year. It's not, development isn't contingent upon having a master plan.
Okay.
It's that we created a new zone, we have this downtown, a lot of us participated in the visioning around it. Then the time for the master plan is now, it is, okay, let's do a master plan, what does it actually look like, let's develop the concepts further. But it's a piece of work that council needs to do, but it's not actually slowing down development.
Okay, that's important. Thanks.
Okay. So we'll get into the next section. I'm going to run through this relatively quickly, and if you feel at the end of it that you need anything, explained out more, just let me know, and that way we can do that in the interest of time. So the next thing we're going to talk about are additional dwelling units. So the province of British Columbia brought in a whole bunch of rules around increasing density and small housing. Now, Clearwater as a community is of less than 5,000. So some of those rules don't apply in the same way that they apply to larger municipalities. But the requirement to allow suites certainly does. And when looking at the OCP and what we address there, as well as our zoning bylaw, it's a good opportunity to look at allowing a little bit more as far as what suites can look like. So what an additional dwelling unit is, Jenna, if you don't mind, just next slide. It can be one of three things. It can be a secondary suite in your home. It can be a detached garden suite in your backyard, say, just a single story. Or you could build yourself a nice garage and put a dwelling unit above it. So currently, if you don't mind, next slide, please, Jenna. These definitions are not new. These are in your existing bylaw with a little tweak to the secondary suite one. But the current zoning bylaw does accommodate these. It just doesn't accommodate them broadly. If you don't mind the next slide. All right, so looking at additional dwelling units, and if we do allow these in all of our different residential zones, what do you need to do? Well, you need to have a pathway to access these that's safe and clear and accessible for fire rescue or just for the residents. You need a parking space, building separation, connection to water and sewer, or an adequately sized lot that can be serviced appropriately with water and sewer. Some private amenity space, and we put the caveat in of no rooftop decks. I don't know if that's as much of an issue here in Clearwater, but certainly has been a hot topic in a lot of other communities, so I think it's a good one to include. All right, next slide, please. Yes, yeah. Yeah, there's connection to water and sewer, and then there's a minimum lot size. So you need 4,000 square meters or 1 acre if you're using septic, and you would need a hectare if you're on well and septic. And of course, you would have to prove those out through appropriate permitting through Interior Health. Absolutely, yeah.
Just to state that that's not us inflicting that, that is existing provincial legislation that says you need this much space.
Yeah. That's kind of the standard, and then in addition to that, through the building permitting process, it's often requested that people prove out things like reserve field areas, et cetera. So it will be looked at and evaluated on a bit more of a case-by-case basis as people come in to build.
So when you can explain,
Yeah.
just basically now, when you build a septic field, you need enough space to build a secondary. That's standard across the board.
Yeah.
For
Okay, no worries. So anyways, where are you guys currently allowing your additional dwelling units? Well, secondary suites are allowed throughout the District of Clearwater in your residential zones, but your ADUs, those detached ones like carriage and garden suites, are really only allowed in the RL1 right now. And it has to be larger than 2 hectares, and it can't be within the ALR. So it's got quite a set of rules around it at this time. So the new policy would really broaden that out to include all of your single detached zones.
I agree with that, as long as it can be septic requirements. I think this.
Yeah, it gives opportunities for things like multi-generational living, where people might want to stay with their families and have a little bit more connection to one another or age in place. So, and for rental opportunities as well for people who are trying to get into those really expensive mortgages these days. And next slide. Okay, so what are the conditions that we're writing in along with this to make sure that, we've got control over it? Well, we're going to permit them in all of the low and medium density single detached zones. So that's going to be all of your sort of standard single family style zoning, from your larger acreages right down to your smaller, more urban style lots. The maximum density is 2 units per parcel. So what that looks like is you can have a duplex, or you can have a house with a secondary suite, or you can have a house with a carriage or garden suite. But you can't have a duplex with suites, and you can't have a house with a suite and an additional dwelling unit. And that's based on looking at what servicing capacities are currently at right now. Now, if council wants to explore that further, that can be looked at as well.
I think this is a great starting point. One off the application for the zoning amendment.
Absolutely.
Cases like the duplex and multifamily
Mm-hmm.
with a carriage suite. And the reason I think of that is somebody who's planning to use a short-term rental, for example, and then have a suite for themselves as manager parking.
Yeah.
Do that, right? Like I like that idea of allowing kind of even the larger units to have one accessory building, like a duplex with a whatever, a carriage suite or whatever outside. But to me, doesn't raise any red flags. That's in fact using more density and using more housing. So I like the idea of just blowing it wide open. Like accessory units allowed in all residential.
One thing to think about is, I went to a community to pick up something, and they have duplexes into the upstairs and the downstairs were then split into 4plexes. There was no parking. The driveways were, I'm sure it was an afterthought. So these, I think, is where might be the thought process is being careful with that, is you then have a bunch of Yeah,
We can't get away with that unless you're on council water or you're on, say, a 2-acre lot. And that's where that makes a lot more sense. Where you have to really have multiple things. And I hear what you're talking, we've talked about this before, which is the first one is the one you live in, the second one helps you pay the mortgage, and the third one actually provides. And that's where it's a lot.
Yeah. I think there's still an opportunity for that on those special cases, probably on a case-by-case basis. And if it's really successful, then you come back to the table and you take another look at it and say, hey, let's open this up a little bit more. Yeah. Okay. Now let's get into the last one. All right. Short-term rentals, here we go. Okay. Next slide, please, Jenna. All right. So before we get into finalizing these policies, and I have some draft policies together, I really need to know where council wants to go with this one, because I know that this topic certainly generates a lot of conversation in communities, and I think it's a good time for us to have a conversation right now. So what we're looking to get clarity on is what you want a short-term rental to be as far as length of stay, categorizing or not categorizing uses, conditions of use, and where you want to see them in the community, whether that's everywhere or in select zones. Next slide, please. So the OCP did address short-term rentals, and it does have a definition and some policies around it. Now, an OCP is a living document, and just because we have adopted something, if there's something that council feels that may have changed or shifted or want to adjust, it can be adjusted. But currently, it's tied to a 30-day stay, and currently, it's focused on being in someone's principal residence. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So right now you've got a current STR policy that the district has implemented fairly recently that includes the use of temporary use permits. TUPs are a regulatory tool that allow you to allow a specific use in a commercial or industrial context for up to a 3-year term, and then it allows one extension of up to 3 years. So that tool works, but it doesn't work permanently. Business licensing is in place, and then of course there's a provincial registration component as well. And next slide, please. So why zoning regulations may offer a simpler solution? Well, you don't have to come back to the table on TUPs. You might want to, but if you're looking for something more permanent where you don't have to address it on each case-by-case basis, it gives a little bit more flexibility that way. It can reduce costs and time and certainty for operators, and it can reduce administrative burden for the district as well. Next slide. So currently, the zoning bylaw is proposing the following definitions around STRs. So we're tying a short-term rental to an accommodation of 30 consecutive days or less. And we've got 2 different categories for short-term rental uses. So we've created a short-term rental major, which is going to mean renting out an entire unit, whether that's an entire house up and down, an apartment building, whatever. You don't have to be living in the home to rent it. It can be completely rented. And then short-term rental minor, that means an entire accessory dwelling unit. So either you're renting out your whole suite that's in your primary dwelling, or your carriage suite or garden suite, and you, the owner, live on the property as well. Okay. I'm sorry, just to pop back to that one time. So that short-term rental minor, that ties to the provincial regulations that were implemented for short-term rentals in communities larger than 10,000. So just for consistency. Okay, thank you. All right, so what are our general regulations around this? You're gonna need to get a building permit. You're gonna have to comply with BC Building Code and other applicable provincial enactments. You need a building and fire inspection, of course, to make sure that life safety is taken care of. There needs to be valid business licensing. There needs to be provision of an additional parking space so that we're not overflowing into neighborhoods. There needs to be payment of charges and fees. Of course, you need to connect to water and sewer or prove out that you have adequate area in your septic to address this. Okay. So today I have prepared 4 different options for council to consider for how you may want to regulate short-term rentals. Option 1 is including those 2 categories, short-term rental minor and short-term rental major. The short-term rental minor, meaning that you live in the home and you rent out your suite, that would be allowed in all single detached residential zones throughout the entire zoning bylaw. And short-term rental major, where you rent out the whole unit, That would be permitted in your 2 mixed-use centers, so your town center and your neighborhood center, as well as your C1 and your recreational commercial, so your general and recreational commercial zones. So option 2, a little bit more restrictive. Option 2 would allow short-term rental minor throughout all of those single detached residential zones, but it wouldn't allow for a short-term rental major use. So this one would tie it closer to what the provincial regulations are for larger communities, a little bit less flexible. Okay. Option 3 just flips that scenario around. In this case, you don't allow it in any residential uses and you keep that separate, and you only allow it as more of a commercial use where it's in those major areas. Okay, and the 4th option is to open it right up and to say we don't want categories, we're going to allow short-term rental use, we're not going to get into all of the various regulations, and we're going to allow it outright in all of our zones. So this option adds flexibility certainly, but there are some other considerations that go with it. Next slide, please. It's just a summary page of what we've just discussed. With option 4, the one where we open everything up, a couple of things that should be considered is just how you're going to manage if you have conflicting land use issues. If that becomes a problem, is that an onus on the district for enforcement? And just there is a slight amendment to the OCP language there because we did write in that we were going to focus it on that residential situation where you would live in the dwelling. It's an amendment, but it's doable. The next slide just has a little table there. And I think it's probably a good time to open it up to get some feedback, to see what council's thinking. And maybe there's an option 5 that we haven't discussed yet. So if you don't mind, just leave, just the chart. Actually, yeah. Okay.
You mentioned some potential problems with allowing them also.
Sure, yeah. So short-term rental can cause conflicts in land use. So sometimes when you've got, say, a house that's rented both up and down as a short-term rental and you've got next door is an owned house or a long-term rental, sometimes the nature of those uses aren't compatible. People are on vacation, they're enjoying themselves, they've got the music loud, or there's additional vehicles. Things like that can sometimes have conflicts with residential uses. And so that's one piece of it. Another component to consider is that when you increase short-term rental options in your housing market, you sometimes decrease long-term rental options in your housing market because there can be a good revenue generation from short-term rentals, and it can result in having less rental stock available.
So on that point, because I think that has been something that Clearwater has run into, is that there would be the sort of October to April, where it could be a rental, and then if you had tenants there, they almost became the short-term renters. So we could have the next more lucrative stage of short-term renters. Do you know of a community where you actually need to choose a lane? So we don't have this disruption, because I think we do want to look forward to, if we do have an inflection of industry or otherwise, how do we protect those workers who need that stability? And I look to our nurses, I look to our teachers, I look to, people who.
Yeah, the Residential Tenancy Act actually would be what regulates that when it comes to longer term rentals.
That's right, but it hasn't always
Yeah.
worked because the tenant, the landowner has said, I've got a 6-month rental for you. So they've set a term of 6 months. So how would a municipality manage that to choose a lane? Is it possible?
I think by definition alone, if you've got people staying longer than a short-term rental, it sort of falls into general rental. I don't think most municipalities do regulate that because it falls more under the RTA and the provincial regulations. It's something we could look at in conditions. I haven't explored that myself, so I think I'd have to take that away and give it some real thought
Well, I'd be
to
interested in
provide
what, yeah.
better answer.
So, just so council is clear, based on the number of applications we have received, the majority of those where there's issues would be fall under the STR major. So the owner doesn't live on the property, has a home with one or more residential units and to get out short term. And that's we've allowed them under a provisional license to date because we said we're having these zoning discussions and we'll see what the legality of it is. But those are the ones with the problematic ones. And in fact, interestingly enough, with the bed and breakfast class, which we used to have quite a few people fall under the bed and breakfast class. When you look at the current definition of a bed and breakfast, most of them didn't actually fit because they weren't in the same dwelling unit, right? So that's, I think, what council really needs to hone in on is the procedure and how we handle that.
So for me, I lean towards some regulation. That's been my stance. I'd love to see us move towards allowing major and minor in all zones. And like for me, when I hear about those conflicts, you know, for example, additional vehicles, it'll be hard to tell whose vehicle is a guest vehicle because they'll have to see through the floor looking down cars. Right? And so how will we really count? The other thing is conflict with the neighbors. Our bylaws still apply, right? Like noise, all those things can still be something that we enforce. So I actually don't foresee conflict there. I think this is just, especially as we have things like my temporary workers coming through from Trans Mountain, all of these things. These are opportunities for locals to help themselves with their mortgage, to help them accumulate wealth and potentially reinvest in the community in the form of real estate investment. So to me, I see like the less regulation we have, the better. I don't think Clearwater has ever had a short-term rental problem per se. Might have had individual incidents, but an overall problem, I don't really see that. As for Elliott's point about the continued, you know, the 6-month cycle, it's, we can ask them to pick a lane, but we can't tell people to rent. And I've heard a lot of people resistant to long-term tenants more because their issue with long-term tenants is from cost. So it is really risky to rent to a tenant where it's no risk with a short-term rental because someone's problematic, you move them, they don't come back, there's no legislation around that. But if someone destroys your suite and doesn't pay rent because of our provincial legislation, that can be an extreme process to get that tenant out.
So, here's what.
Yeah, go.
So it does come down to two things. I'm going to agree with you that allowing it throughout the community, and I'm okay with that. Because it's essentially happened without us allowing it. So the cat is out of the bag. The two things that need to happen for me to feel comfortable with that, one is, yes, we have bylaw, but this, if it's operating like this is a business. Just like a hotel, if you have bad guests, you as the owner of that hotel, or your appointed agent who should be available, needs to deal with that problem, not town bylaw offices. And you can talk to some people all day about that particular issue. The second part is there has to be the choice of a lane. The shifting from STR for 6 months of the year to, they may want to call it a term rental for 6 months of the year. That is, in my understanding, provincial law is not currently allowed, but people are doing it here. That you make a choice to take the risk of making all your hay in 6 months, plus some little extra days through the winter months. People popping through a Christmas vacation, guests, and that sort of thing. Or you rent year round, or you don't rent the property into the market and so on. That, to my understanding, is current provincial law. And watching the province enforce on STR legislation in other areas, it really hasn't included us in the regional districts. They are looking for those and they're actively forcing regional districts to act on fixing those things. So those are the two things that I see. Other than that, I'm okay with it opening up. I think there's an opportunity for additional suites to be created, and extra external dwellings on larger lots. Having stayed with some of those carriage houses on the Sunshine Coast, they really don't seem to affect the neighborhood that much, especially if the owners or agents are on site. And I think it, you know, with the cost of housing and the cost of construction of housing and cost of buying housing in this market, like there's just no way that a whole bunch of people can get into the market at all.
I guess my concern, and I agree with opening it up and allowing a broader use through the entire thing. I guess my concern comes back to housing security for people in the community or coming to the community and having the availability of long-term rentals. What would this opening it up have effect on that market? Is it going to reduce it? I mean, the whole provincial legislation was developed to make sure that we have housing security for people. And opening it up, I got this little fear inside of me that it could impact on rentals and availability and affordability within our community. And it could damage the community in that regard. So I feel it could open it up more, but I think there has to be some kind of restriction. I don't know. I'm nervous about the affordability and availability.
So to that point, because we just had the first discussion about the town center area. So this is an opportunity where there's lots of other areas where these could be developed. And is that the zone that is maybe not eligible for short-term vacation rentals? Is that kind of your consideration for us to mull over?
Yeah, so the options are whether you want to open up major and minor. So allowing that flexibility to do it in the residential zones, but then also opening up those mixed-use center zones and commercial zones. Or we can limit it to just the residential and see how it goes. And you could still manage short-term rental major, in your apartments or your larger commercial zones through temporary use permits or through site-specific zoning. It's not to say that you're saying they can't happen at all. You're just saying now it has to happen on a case-by-case basis with some input from council potentially. Or you could say, we don't want to do it in our residential zones. That's not working for us, just commercial. So I realize there's a wide range of options, but I was kind of starting from not having any inputs at all and wanted to really see what council was thinking and what the community was looking to see as well, and what's working and what isn't. So, that local context is super valuable to make sure that we're writing policy that works for you.
Mike.
So when the pipeline was here, I'll talk into it, just in case. When the pipeline was here, the issue that came up, and I don't know where this falls into major or minor, they were offered really high rent amount from the pipeline company. So that took up any kind of local aspect to be able to rent long-term. How does that fall into what's being proposed options? Does that make any difference? Does it negate that? Does it stop that type of?
Live out allowances? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
because they were offered, I'll just throw the numbers out there, $3,000 a month, people were charging that. So if you lived here and had a regular job, you couldn't afford the rent that was being charged.
And I think that's what Brianne's getting at, what the risk is. And when you
Yeah.
get those boom times, you're risking your local employment, and that is what your local residents that do the local jobs. And that's what happened last time. We lost pharmacist assistants. We lost a lot of members of the service industry here. And we're doing that, and there has to be a consideration, absolutely, during boom time. But that's also a discussion with those companies that are coming in for boom time, and I think we've learned our lesson that those discussions need to be had in advance about how they accommodate or allow the accommodation of their staff, their direct staff, and their subcontractors, etc., service businesses that come along with those booms.
No, you're the chair.
Placeholder.
Like on Zoom or Teams.
It's a legacy. No, I think LOA is for people who are going to, it's the living out allowance. It's someone who's going to work long term, so likely their stay would be longer than the 30 days that we're talking about in the short-term rental.
Gotcha.
With the exception of people who are here doing minor pipeline service and contracts, things like that. In which case their LOA wouldn't be what we're worried about. And that's honestly, as far as I'm concerned, short-term rentals, absolutely charge whatever you want. That's a vacation rental, so they're competing with the tourism market.
Yeah.
Whereas the long-term rental is what is affected. So I don't think it really affects this.
Okay.
We are double short.
Right, sorry, yeah.
So my question is this what the July 30th is about?
For the discussion?
Yeah.
That's more just to present where things are at with the zoning bylaw as a whole. So we would have this information if we're able to get to a point where everybody's feeling somewhat aligned and we have clear direction, then we'll have that available, as well as other changes that are coming. So additional dwelling unit discussion that we just had, town center zoning, what does that look like? Just flagging any sort of the bigger shifts, and then we should have a new zoning map so people can see what that looks like. And there's new zoning codes, so it's really just an introduction to what the draft zoning bylaw looks like. And
For the most part, though, you know, with the input on this and other things,
yeah,
we're opening up.
oh yeah,
And that has been sort of a frustration for a lot of people in town, that we, you know, even get certain restrictions because you physically cannot place this, and this together and make them function with the technology we have right now. Yeah, our town has a zoning map or zoning categories that just don't seem to be, make it easy for people to just get on with building or making, like, decisions based on the property. Anything that we can do with that, that's still protecting the existing neighbors, I'm okay with that, and I think that's what we should be presenting to the public. And if the public wants to claw back on that, that's why we have these public.
But just on that, because I mean, I'm finding that this last topic is super interesting with the first topic. And so I would almost like to see almost like a debate scenario to draw it out, because you've got to piece it all together. But when you come just for an information session, do you think about how it all pieces together, or do you just think about what you yourself might need as a citizen coming to provide your input, as opposed to the holistic view of community? And that's what I'm kind of interested on. Like, we seem to be on a precipice about, you know, what is the trend, and what is the trend that Clearwater needs to project for the next 20 years? I'm not sure I know that, but I do want to also get some ideas about what other communities are doing. I think, Merlin, when you were in Edmonton for FCM, they did a lot of focus features on housing in Edmonton about different styles and what densification could look like, and it had a sense of privacy, and it wasn't just, you know, a box of 4 units together.
Yeah, no, it is, it's a very,
Variety of things, but I think there's two things with housing. There's what you can provide as a unit, like what is the box you're making, whether that box is part of a 6-pack of boxes, a 4-pack of boxes, whatever, a small box next to a larger box. The crisis of British Columbia, which is mostly unique to here in Ontario and maybe a couple other places, is the affordability of the box. And right now, talking to my stepchildren and their friends, they have the vague possibility of being able to buy a single detached home in Clearwater if they do everything right somewhere else and make their money somewhere else for 10 years. They have twice the chance of being a homeowner versus a renter if that place is part of a quadplex or a duplex. Because all of a sudden that initial mortgage goes down from $700,000 to $800,000, or, you know, on a used older house, maybe you get lucky and you get in for $550,000, down to the $200,000 or $300,000 or the $400,000 for half a yard and half a house. That is the conversation that is happening all across British Columbia, everywhere south of us, and in the major cities in the north. That has to be part of our thought process, is what are we leaving as far as zoning and housing possibilities for every kid, you know, I shouldn't say kid, but every young couple that wants to have children before they're 30. And right now, in this town, we're not leaving them much. And they're definitely not having those opportunities in cities as well, other than being in a 4-plex, renting a basement suite, and all of, you know, renting is still precarious form of housing. You have to think about it that way, with all the things that are going on, and especially when we know that we're coming into a boom economy.
So are you suggesting the problems that we want to be solving are, one, how to assist new homeowners? So that's one problem we're trying to solve, like to make that barrier lower. The second one is that ties into that. If we're going to make it lower, do we provide opportunities that will help offset the costs of that major asset? So we're looking at that as well. And then the third, it seems that we're trying to address is how do we secure housing for people that are just coming and just starting? And that's looking for a rental to take on like a 3-year commitment with, let's say, the school, for example, and to make sure that there's surety, or our retail sector, or our food and beverage sector. Like, we have to make sure that those are available and they're not minimized.
Back to Brianna's original point, the surveys, lack of diversity of housing stock.
Yeah, but I think that what's important is when we break it down to who we're talking about. So no, it's just the lack of diversity, but we're like, who are we talking to? So that when we're getting these engagements, people can see themselves as one of those questions. That's right, absolutely, or their employees. But to me, that was a little bit of a more specific question. And I do want to find out about how communities handle one lane or the other. Like you and I, we've both said that. Do you get the both? Do you if you're going to have a short-term rental, you've got to apply for a business license. So you've got that. And so is there anything through bylaws or otherwise that, people who come and rent, they can actually see, well, you've actually got a short-term vacation rental, which says that you've agreed that that's your lane. Do we have any teeth with that?
Currently, the longer-term rentals, it's not covered by a business license. I don't think we have a lot
No, but
of
what they
control.
could do is come in and they can check the business registry if they're on a short-term rental,
Yeah, that's
right? So
right.
they know that that's it. But if they get into something and it's not on that list, then it's a different scenario. So if the
Coming into it, if you come into town and you're renting a place and it's on the SDR list, and yes, you rent the whole thing for 6 months. And that's one thing. It's when your landlord says, guess what? It's May, October. And that actually is a Residential Tenancy Act. That's more of an education piece for renters. That is not legally allowed. And we know what Bill has stated this in the residential
yes.
act and how it works is really hard on everybody right now for a lot of reasons. And 20 years ago, if you asked me if I had sympathy for landlords, maybe not so much, but now after some of the horror stories I've heard, including one that I've been dealing with the last couple of days, fully get that we're two sides of awful on a lot of this right now when it comes to rentals. So, but back to your original point, and I think this is really good. I think let's identify. We're not identifying the boxes, but who do we need boxes for?
Yeah, and I guess with that, I am interested to see, although there's been a provincial push for this, it's been relatively new, because we are behind on it. What are the lessons that could be learned? So, for example, our fourplexes or whatever, are they then governed by strata? So, although they're more affordable to get into, those strata fees actually bump up those costs. So, what are the lessons coming out from other communities because of this sudden provincial push? That they wish, I wish we'd thought of that and we could take advantage of that learning.
Sorry, just to touch on that question, is it the push for housing, or are we on the short-term rental thing? Just for clarity, so I make sure,
I
okay.
think it's both, like, because they both came in together, right?
So the province of BC has put out mandated legislation to address densifying communities throughout the province. And so any community that exceeds 5,000 residents, a single-family lot that is, I think, 270 square meters, like 2,700 square feet, you can have 4 units, just right off the top. There's no, that's the density allowed. If you're near a transit corridor, it's 6 units, right? So that has come in, and the province has been pushing really hard to move away from regulation altogether. They're not getting into how it's stratified or how it's owned necessarily, but just getting units into the market to try to address affordability and demand. The short-term rental housing one is a little bit different. That one, I think, has come out of some challenges that communities were facing in twofold. One is that it was drawing out of the long-term rental stock, and that was causing problems, particularly in like in the Lower Mainland and some other communities. And then also dealing with some of the conflicting use. And of course, there's also, you know, a lot of challenge and pushback from the Hotel Motel Association, right? They also have their points of frustration. That's just competition, that's how it goes, but the province has come out with those rules. And so that has come into place for communities with 10,000 residents or greater. Now, there are exceptions for some of the resort communities where you have ski hills, like Sun Peaks, for example. But Kamloops, we wouldn't even be having this conversation because it's already written in. You can have it in your house, you need to live in the house, and it can be in a suite, and it's 30 days, and that's that. That's,
I think that from my perspective, I thought the permitted in all zones, major and minor, 30-day limit, and, you know, I don't know if we need to add a caveat there to look into ways to secure the local long-term rental stock, right? Or, you know, I don't understand how we could maybe regulate that, taking a lane, other than saying you have to have a business.
I agree. I just want to find a way that we're protecting all sectors of our community.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to open it up is great, but we're still looking at those who maybe are a bit privileged to own, and we're not supporting those people who maybe want to find some savings. So just sensitive to that, but and hoping that everybody prospers.
So, to go forward with this sort of input, I think, relevant. If we put this out into the public session.
So, we could do that, just a couple caveats on that. We're on a really tight turnaround on this project. So, the referral period for a zoning bylaw, just to get reviewed by health and transportation, is a minimum of a month. So in order to meet our targets, if we did sort of float it to more of a public fed, we want to, you know, gather, it would just delay the timeline, and you may not have a bylaw completed in time. So that's the only caveat I would give. It's not to say we can't have that conversation, and we could still do the referral maybe without this piece being finalized, but there's just some time sensitivities there. Yeah.
I think what we're talking about right now is what we want.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to double check, especially on that zoning for the first one. Like, is that what? I just wouldn't mind some more feedback on it, which is the point of maybe the 30th.
Yeah, we can absolutely receive feedback there, and you know, make tweaks and stuff. If we're looking to kind of do a broader, large engagement process, then that's where I'm saying the time factor. Yeah, but yeah, we can. I'd have to think about how we want to measure that feedback, and I can certainly.
And maybe it's, I don't know. I didn't know this is what we were talking about today.
Yeah, this item has sort of kind of emerged as more of a pressing item as we started the project, in all
Yeah.
fairness. So yeah, that's.
Are we getting a copy of this? Do we get to keep this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So read it again?
Yeah.
Okay.
If there's no further comment, we'll move to adjournment. Motion to adjourn the committee of the whole.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Oh, thanks.
Okay,
Thank you. Thanks for all your feedback.
we'll take a recess for 5 minutes or till 2:25. council meeting for Tuesday, July 21st, 2026. Begin by acknowledging that we are fortunate to be gathering together on the unceded territory of the Simp people who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial. Are there any late items to add to the agenda? Councillor Sim.
Yes, I would like to add one under new business, if I may.
Okay, and what would that be?
It would be U13 terrace slow pitch team.
Okay, so that would be 16.7.
Thank you.
U16 tourney team. Okay, anything else that anybody like to add? If not, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented with the addition? Moved by Councillor Frizzle, seconded by Councillor Bratton. All those in favor? And that passes. Are there any known conflict of interest or pecuniary interest that anybody would like to declare? Seeing none, we have nothing at this point from the TNRD director. He did send me an email on something earlier this morning, but not for the whole thing. Moving on, item 7.1, Ms. Bonamore, come on up.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Blackwell and Council. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us today, as well as everything that you do on a day-to-day basis. I know most of you, as acquaintances, respect your role in our community and have quite a bit of trust in many of you. Which is why when I left last year's meeting around this time, it was obvious to me that some of the summaries that were made by the CAO were a little bit biased or not necessarily like highlighting convenient statistics, I guess. So the post done on July 9th by the district clearly shows, if you look at that digital image, 55% of the respondents of the survey said they would never or rarely use the dog park. But the summary doesn't really show that and uses those rarelys as a yes. So for me, it looks like over a majority showed little or no interest in the dog park being where it was. Knowing, and I say this with like the most respect, but seeing the struggles that the town faces with managing the many facilities that we do have, it seems natural that there would be questions and concerns around maintenance and management. Mr. Blackwell, you've talked a lot about all of our road maintenance and how that's a lot. So it feels just like another thing that we're biting off, which is why I was prompted to make a post about it on my own personal page, just sharing my feelings around it and asking if other people felt the same. That post is what had a council member basically accuse me of rage baiting and then offered to meet to have a discussion around the project. At that meeting, I asked about the management and maintenance, the costs, and what the plan is to make sure that this isn't going to be another barrier dog park beside that lovely splash park that so many people use. The response I got was that it was negligible, and that again raised a big concern. So I came home and tried to convince myself for about a day that this is probably fine and it'll hopefully be very well managed. But it just wouldn't stop. The negligible comment was really concerning to me. So that's what prompted the petition. I'm really disappointed that the local newspaper didn't reach out to me for commentary after they did an article. I was really interested in the fact that there's a mention of the Trans Mountain Reserve Fund for community amenities. And up into that article, I was under the impression this was all Rotary funded. And again, with so much respect, it does feel like the Trans Mountain money could likely go to things like stinky bathrooms. So the more I speak to people, the more that we're gathering support, feeling the same thing that the original 55% said as far as rarely or never. Sorry, I just lost my spot here. So yeah, in that article in the paper, there's a comment about how there would be nothing to gain to revisit this. And I don't really feel like that's the case looking at the statistics or I guess results that I see and the communication that I've had from council and everybody that I've spoken to in the neighborhood. I'm also super curious about the last stat I saw was 90,000 for the dog park. In the paper, it says a total of 236,000 for the bike track, dog park, and parking. And then the breakdown of that actually equals 237,000. So it looks like we're already $1,000 over budget. And it's those kind of, like, I don't mean to just split hairs, but it just feels like maybe we haven't looked at this as well as we could. I also have to really point out, I've had a disappointingly large amount of people reach out to me saying that they strongly disagree, but aren't comfortable putting their name down on the petition. And after the Facebook activity from council, as well as the newspaper's choice to not contact me, as well as the interesting summaries that can be made by the CEO staff, I can see why a lot of people aren't comfortable reaching out. And I'm really curious if that is the kind of culture that we're looking to show in our community. I think that's about it. I would try to prepare this as best as I can. As it stands, we've got 81 signatures on the petition, right there beside the 82 that said they would use it weekly or daily. So it feels like this is something that needs like some pretty close attention. And with so much respect, I'm just asking that we take a better look. It's a very small area in relative to other dog parks that I've seen with the bike park and the splash park. I've been told that it's the community parks manager that is going to take care of that, and I've been rest assured that he's got it. I have asked what his experience and qualifications are in designing dog parks right beside kids splash parks in tight areas. I haven't heard anything back. It's also been mentioned that the already identified problem intersection in front of the doctor's office would see quite a bit more traffic, which would be a concern. Bylaw and the lack of the bylaw presence and no dog licensing is also, I've been told that whole licensing registries for dogs is a big city thing that is out of reach for this district of Clearwater. And that prompts me to think that maybe we don't need a dog park in the middle of the area, but it is what it is. It's been brought to my attention that the community plan, there's another letter, it's the official community plan, OCP, it was agreed upon that we wanted to kind of encourage people to travel elsewhere other than in Jimmy Pattison's backyard. So it feels like we might be kind of leaning away from that plan. Primarily, would really love to hear what kind of costs taxpayers are looking at for the ongoing maintenance and management of the dog park, and I guess just how equipped we all feel to move forward with this, and how confident we can be that it's not going to steal resources from other facilities that could desperately need it.
Okay, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Hold on there, because I'm sure you're going to get questions.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'll just make one little statement on the Trans Mountain funds. Trans Mountain set those aside specifically for new things in town, so they can't be used. I think you kind of said smelly toilets and things like that. If we're building new smelly toilets, we could use it for that, but not for maintaining or fixing up older ones necessarily. But for the rest of it, yeah, no, thank you for your comments. Questions from council, comments from council?
Can I just?
Yep, no, go ahead.
I thought Rotary had to build, so Rotary and Trans Mountain, both of those funds
So
have
we
to be
quite
new?
often get, so the intention was that Rotary was going to fundraise for this. We may use funds to backstop that, and as Rotary comes up with more and more money, we can use less and less of other funds. That was sort of the intention behind this. The cost, obviously, and the size of this plan has varied greatly over time. Like, there's been, I don't think at least 3 different versions of this that I've seen so far. This is the smallest version that I think I've seen. So, yeah, I mean, there will be changes because we have changed the idea of what this is. The same that goes with the bike park. The bike park is essentially shrunk into half and then changed to now, instead of a dirt pile park, to a, prefab, easily maintainable and movable park, versus, what was going to be going in with machines and building ramps and things like that out of gravel and other materials. So, this has evolved through public consultation and through budgeting, quite frankly, over time on both of these projects. So, yeah, I mean, things do change and prices do change. And as we were just having the conversation on housing in this town, if you try to build something at 30%, and you might be right in 6 months. So,
Day and age, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, there are so many variables. Questions, Councillor Herring?
I don't have, I had submitted it. I can bring it up right now. There was 6 different questions, I believe. They were just name, address, date, email address, and then the last question. So you guys must have received a copy of the petition that I had submitted.
We have your report, but we have not seen a petition with names. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but what we were asked, what the petition was asking for.
Yeah, so we
So
have
the
this-
question was, do you agree with that?
Okay.
With what the petition is asking for, So you don't have, do you want me to read the actual, I thought the petition that I sent.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason we did not include the petition in the council package is because it wasn't received on time. So if something isn't received on time, there's no way to go through it, so.
The petition was sent. It was just the signatures that I didn't know how to get into a spreadsheet and get to you guys.
If you could just read.
I can read it right now.
The statement that you had on the position, that would be great for folks.
So it's a few pages, but we, the undersigned residents, property owners, and community members of Clearwater respectfully request that council pause approval of the proposed Pioneer Dog Park and its current location until a comprehensive review has been completed and alternative locations have been fully evaluated. The petition is not opposed to the development of a dog park. Rather, we believe the proposed location raises significant concerns that deserve further consideration before any final decision is made. So just to try to keep it short, the next bullet point, specifically we ask council to reconsider the proposed location due to close proximity to the children's playground, splash park, bike park, and surrounding residential neighborhoods. Conduct a comprehensive safety and risk assessment addressing potential interactions between dogs, children, cyclists, and other park users. This is the big one, in my opinion, from the feedback I've seen. Present a detailed management and maintenance plan, including enforcement of bylaws, licensing requirements, waste management, operating hours, emergency response procedures. We've seen the problem with dogs recently in town. And long-term maintenance costs has also been a big concern that people have talked to me about. Consider alternative locations, evaluate the long-term impacts on residents, traffic congestion, tourism, future subdivision growth, and municipal operating costs. So this was all sent the Tuesday, last Tuesday.
Yeah, and to be fair, we actually have most of that on the first
Okay,
page.
there you
It wasn't clear that this is what your actual question was. We sort of received it as a presentation in advance of your remarks, so yeah, we understand that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've never spearheaded something like this, so I'm doing what I can in the middle of my busiest season.
I've never done a petition either, so
There you
here
go.
we go. So thank you for that.
So I just want to clear up, is it both Rotary funds and Trans Mountain funds are only for new developments?
No, Rotary can donate to whatever Rotary wants to
Okay,
have built
okay.
in town. The Trans Mountain, this was a specific legacy fund. There was actually 2 parts to it. One was an education fund for $50,000 for providing funds for people that were trying to advance, tickets or, you become a welder or whatever. It's to pay for expenses out of this. The second was a Trans Mountain Community Enhancement Fund that if I was doing it again, I'd ask for, instead of the $450,000 they gave us, I'd ask for $4 or $5 million.
Yeah.
And if they're coming again, I'm asking for $4 or $5 million. And they know that already, because it really wasn't enough. And we've been kind of holding on to it, waiting for, originally it was Dutch Lake Beach and 37 East, which is the old Chuck Wagon parking lot and things like that for enhancements. And it's sort of a can that's being kicked down the road into various things. And it's sort of an effort to land on it. But mostly it was going to be used, in my understanding of this thing, as sort of the backstop for anything that wasn't covered by what Rotary could raise through fundraising. And that's the same thing actually goes for the bike park. Originally, when the bike park was pitched, it wasn't by a formal group, it was by an informal group, but the understanding at that time is that the people that wanted that to happen would raise funds for it or help with the construction of that as well. So we're kind of using it as, quote unquote, the credit card to make these projects happen, with the hope that the credit card will be paid off through donations by people that want these things to happen. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bratton had a question?
I thank you very much, because that was very well done. I have one question, and I'm sorry I didn't track everything that was put online, and you and I didn't get a chance to talk, which I actually wanted to. I curious how this current structure of that area, which is basically a dog park, how do you like it currently?
Absolutely. And I think everybody that has their dogs that goes through there loves it the way it is.
So you're against the fence?
My concern with, especially like as it is and how it will be, is that I don't, and again, I try to say this as respectfully as possible. I think with the way that we have so much tourism traffic all summer long, the pipeline and possibly mine people, and we know that the pipeline people are transient. They're not, many of them aren't going to be paid into the tax pool. A lot of the foremans come with dogs in their trucks. I've worked on the pipeline. Same likely with the majority of the first couple years of the mine people that we will see. So there's like 3 population demographics that are bringing in rogue dogs that were like, hey, play in our backyard. Like, again, it seems like there's some red flags that are, visible there. If like truly, and for myself personally, as someone that lives right beside it, and most of you know, I'm not in town between May and the end of September. I came down just for this. So really, it's the concern for me of the mixing pool of what we might take on as liability and invite into our backyards beside our children. A dog was mauled to death in a dog park in May. So if the kids at the splash park were to see that, like, what level of PTSD are we looking at? Like, what I see is a beautiful spot that is working really well. And to see that change with possible risks and liabilities for less than 55% of people that aren't really interested in it, it doesn't really seem like an easy sell for me.
So sorry to further that, if the fence wasn't there and it continued as was with the label of park, that dogs are allowed, does that change?
I think it just, from the research I've done with like dog parks, I think it changes it in a way that people just kind of, are at this pace of like, oh, I'm walking through, and it doesn't like encourage the melting pot as much and concentrate it into a fence. Because it's not, again, from the research I've done, it's not necessarily if a dog fight is going to happen, it's when. And like, absolutely, dogs have moments and kids have moments, and it's often very well and fine. The rogue dogs and that possible population for me is definitely something that I don't want to see beside what we have going right now.
Okay.
Further questions or comments? No. Councillor Sim?
And maybe CAO Johnson may not be able to answer that. Do we have some information on what the anticipated maintenance plan and costs are as part of this planning?
it's anticipated the maintenance will actually be pretty low. It's essentially a third of, probably not even a half an acre of actual grass. It's between trees. So the maintenance costs will be mowing those lawns. Most dog owners who go to dog parks, in my experience, and I've been to quite a few dog parks, are pretty responsible as far as picking up after their dog. Not everyone for sure, but mostly they are. So mainly it'll be yard maintenance and some doggy bags and cleaning those out periodically, right? Not what I would call a high maintenance area.
And so that would be on district staff, so that there would be a maintenance schedule, so that there would be, daily collection, very similar to how we work at Dutch Lake. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely, similar to all of the parks that we maintain. There would be on a schedule.
But I do believe that is a contracted park, is that not? So it would be, the splash park is operated by the contractor, or is it not?
A contractor, but we retain the right to maintain any parks as we see
so
fit. And there's a bit of a mix there with
Yeah,
different.
I'm splitting in a hair there, but between
Yeah.
whether it's a contractor that does that work or our district staff. Okay.
So I appreciate this, and I appreciate the fact that there's a lens to ask some questions. And I had done kind of a summary on it about how it came about. When the first original engagement came through from the district, there was 157 comments that were provided, and essentially. The vast majority were definitely in favor of a dog park. Like my entire time that I've been on council, people are in favor of the dog park. What you are expressing is something that also came through on that particular survey, is just some thoughts on it. And so like you, doing the own research and definitely checked with, the vet to get their experience and thoughts on that, reached out to some other communities. And, it did seem like it hit a lot of the boxes. The maintenance, for sure. I can see that, and I think that was a good question because it wasn't part of our reporting. Rotary, they had done the overhang in the splash park there too. That was their band shelter part. So I guess what I'm wondering is I've heard from equal number of people who really like the idea of it being there, as well as people are like, I think it needs some reconsideration. And so this is always an interesting one for a community, is what happens when everybody's not on board, and what does that mean? And so what I am wondering is with something that has got some safety concerns, is what is the evaluation period of it, Mr. Johnson? So, let's say that all good intentions, the waste is going to be cleaned up, but the neighbors are actually, I am done with this smell. It feels like I am like right next door to something. So when we do an infrastructure or we do a project and it feels like it's being done to our community, how do we revisit and reevaluate unintended consequences?
Well, that's a great question, and that would have to be through some community feedback. Although essentially, I guess the question is, it's an interesting question. I think the question is, what's the impact on the immediate residents, and how much weight do you put on the immediate residents' impact? It's for every facility that we have in every park, there's some residents close to it who probably would prefer that activity was not right in their backyard. But when it's a publicly owned facility, and in particular that area is kind of, for lack of a better word, almost a bit like our Central Park, for a facility like that, how do you gauge what the community benefit is versus the fact that some of the residents who live by think of it as their backyard, so to speak? It's a challenge. If this goes ahead and there was a uproar of complaints and they were verifiable, they were realistic complaints, then we'd look at alternatives. Whether that's alternatives in changing the rules around it, because dog parks, just so we're clear, are very rules-based. They have rules posted when you go in. People are expected to accompany their dogs. They don't go to a dog park and just dump off their dog and go to work. They are expected to accompany the dogs. The dog's behavior is, the owner is required to be responsible for his dog's behavior, right? That's just the reality of any park you use. So if there was unintended consequences, and they were real consequences, not just the fact that a neighbor still may not like the actual activity, then we'd follow up depending what that consequence was.
Yeah, and I am responding to the fact that, we have had some incidents of aggressive dogs. That is a concern that's being raised here. It's being a concern raised in conjunction. People have cited, I've been to other areas and it hasn't been a problem. I've been to areas that are right next to playgrounds. But in the event that that is not our experience, we do have the ability to reevaluate, because we will not stay stuck on something that has got negative consequences, especially for involving children. Do I
True.
understand that right?
Sorry, council always has the ability to reevaluate. The interesting issue on the aggressive dogs is, as council is probably very well aware, we've had quite a few incidents recently of people walking their dogs and another dog in the neighborhood coming out and, for lack of a better word, attacking it, although attacking may be a little strong, but going after that dog. That is not necessarily an argument against having a dog park. A dog park actually creates a safer space. If someone wants to walk their dog and they feel uncomfortable about walking down the road with it, creates a safer, rules-based space. Does it mean a dog attack will never, ever occur in a dog park? Of course we can't confirm that or say that, but I think it creates a safer space for dogs to walk. In addition, it's a bit of a safer space, possibly if someone's walking their dog and they're alone and they don't feel comfortable on the road they're on. They can go into an area that has some lighting and do that walking, parking nearby, right? So and then finally, dog parks, one of the rationale behind a dog park is it helps to socialize dogs. So once dogs get to be more socialized, they tend to handle other dogs better and they're more used to them. So it can overall contribute to the peacefulness in the doggy kingdom, but I guess that remains to be seen. There may be incidents.
Can I comment?
Yep, absolutely.
So you spoke to all the rules that need to be followed and enforced. Who's enforcing that? Who's regularly going to be at the dog park making sure that the rules are being enforced? That's a major question from the reading I've done. Dog park success is dependent on bylaw presence, rule enforcement, and policing of some level. Again, with the three populations of more transient people, I feel like that's a bit of a lofty assumption, knowing the way tourists already treat our fields. I also would love to argue it's not just the people living directly there, it's everybody with an under kindergarten and maybe up to 8 years old child who enjoys that splash park regularly. And no matter how many fences or trees you put up, nothing's going to stop the reek of a dog park. And Barrier is a perfect example of that. So it wouldn't just be the people living next door that would be affected with poor management or maintenance. It would be anybody in town that regularly uses that park. And I would also like to point out, nobody asked the kids what they would like.
Okay, thanks. Further questions or comments?
Just another one. I do also just want to do a breakdown. So when I went into it, because I was curious, like, what did we get for feedback? It's been on probably an agenda for council for
7 years.
like a long time, and it's been a continual one. And so when I look at it, as we had 148 people said yes, they do support the dog park. 58 people said no, they didn't. Out of that 148, 128 indicated that they would be using daily, weekly, monthly, or rarely. So there seemed to be high there. It does have water, which is one of the other challenges when we looked at other areas, is that was a big infrastructure
Yes.
cost, so that was big. The fact that it's a reduced square print, I'll call it that. That's a silly
Footprint.
word, but footprint. It's smaller. It is in response to what the citizens are. This takes out this brings on a different element. So I'm really comfortable with making sure that there is an evaluation with a strong regard over these questions: maintenance, impact, safety.
Thank you.
And I have said to you as well, is that I really hope that this will be very much like the roundabout, that it creates success and better. I do, and I also really like the fact that of where it is because it's connected with so many of our paths. I like the fact that there can be that social connection. We do hear from people moving. It's a way to meet people. Like, it hits a lot of those social check boxes, but it can't be at the expense of safety and cost, is what I'm hearing from you.
And I think adding the rarely into a yes is, because if you tell someone, like, if I say I rarely go to Vancouver, that's what, once every 10 years, right?
Well,
It's-
and that's
it's up
fair.
for a
And-
bit.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, so there's a couple of things you could actually take from that. In the fact that we are going to respond to the community about wanting a dog park, when in fact, maybe it won't even be used. There's that risk.
Well, 55% say rarely or never.
You know, so there is that. I think what was also really important about what you raised is that people then stood up and they said, and if we're going to do this, we want council to pay attention to our other amenities. And we want that to be bolstered and we want to feel pride in that. And I thought that was a really strong community comment as well.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely where also some concern comes. And for me, it's on, I understand there's a lot going on, and clearly I can only begin to understand. But, you know, seeing other facilities that could use attention and then seeing a new one prop up. And if 55% of people in town don't plan on using it very often, then we're spending money for who? The 82 people that are going to use it daily and weekly, and all the tourists? Yes, thank you.
Mr. Johnson, you wanted to comment further?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just thought I should comment on the comment that the messaging put out was deceptive. And on July 8th of 2025 is when we talked about the engagement for the dog park. Specifically in that, on that public report, was a chart, put all the actual answers to the Survey Monkey survey that was done, specifically a chart showing all of the answers by percentage, including the nevers, the rarelies, the monthlies, weeklies, and dailies. So to say it's deceptive, I have to say I take a little bit of offense to that. The 55% rarely or never, I would suggest, would be probably higher than the percentage use we get out of our ball diamonds, that we get out of our NTSP, that we get out of Dutch Lake, that we get out of almost any other amenity that we have. People support amenities, even if they don't use them, because they realize that it's a community use. So I think it'd be easy to say, oh, well, 55% rarely or never. I think you got to look beyond that to look at what's the good of the community. This has been a very long-standing request. First came to council. It was talked about in 2019, came to council in 2021, in 2023, with a plan for 2024, and then went through a very long process. So, thank you.
Councilor Herring.
Yeah, I just wanted to, like, I was gonna say a very similar thing, because I'm one of those people who never used the dog park. I have 2 dogs. Wouldn't happen. Not the way I walk my dog. My dogs aren't good enough. I'm a terrible dog owner. Wouldn't do it, right? Like, I would be out elsewhere in the community where, which is what I wanted to highlight, we have planned for other spaces for different types of dogs. So this is, to me, a very narrowly defined need of a dog park, I think. You know, this is for people traveling, people with small dogs, people trying to socialize their dogs in a confined location, which, for example, I wouldn't do. That's not for me. However, I am looking for a spot, maybe, you know, like by the river, for example, which is a piece of property we just bought. That's a great spot to walk a big dog. Wonderful. I'll be there all the time because that's one of the best spots in town for it. And I think we need a strategy long term that's going to allow multiple types of dog owners to enjoy the town in a more controlled way rather than just one. So I don't think this dog park is going to be the end point of our conversation around dog park. I do agree with Shelley that some review is totally needs to be built into this, but I think also this is just one step on the path towards making clear what hopefully safer for people and dogs.
Thank you for those comments.
Also, just to tie into, because you brought up the $90,000, but I think we had the revised cost that was coming in at less than
54 was in the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was reduced. It is a project, and I wish that we could have upgraded Dutch Lake washrooms or the Kapuscinski Park with those funds. But as the mayor pointed out, we don't get to do that, but we will next time if they come through. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, no.
And so again, because we've had so much community over the time, I do feel compelled to also respond to what the long term has been. It was sort of in that budget process. Next time we got to maybe highlight it a bit better because it didn't get anything. And I think this is just one of those moments where I am sorry that we are not going to make everybody happy, and that just sucks.
And that's understandable.
But I do want to just echo, I want to make sure that the review, so it's not felt like it's done to And it's not that there is that chance, because these are thoughtful considerations and concerns that are brought forward.
This not being in line with the official community plan was only brought to my attention this morning, but I think it's like the former CEO suggested Brampton Park, is it? And again, I don't want you guys to have to invent a wheel here, but the fact that it's not really in line with the original community plan seems like something worth looking at for sure.
Yeah, no, thanks for that.
Yeah, and lastly, there's washrooms there. So
Yeah.
we do have, we do have people that are, sort of within walking things, and there are washrooms and facilities. So there was a lot of infrastructure that supported a smaller footprint that would hopefully make it more comfortable. I agree. I mean, I have said it in this meeting, I didn't love it for a tourist attraction. That wasn't necessarily for mine, but I did like it for people who I have seen walking in the neighborhoods to have a place to come, maybe kids being able to bring it so it's a safer area. I'm hoping for the best.
Me too.
But I do hear the
Thank
concerns,
you.
and I appreciate the fact that you did take time to ask for reevaluation and consideration.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and thank you for all your comments today. It's worth a discussion to have all these things talked out loud, because we need to have a fuller understanding of what we're talking about here. And I think that's definitely happened today. Yeah, I mean, the more that we talk about that specific park, and I've had multiple conversations with Calvin Arndt because of the history of that park, and he's got his opinions and things like that as well. And former CAO Leslie Grew had some conversations with her about that park, and because that park is a designated parkland in a really interesting way. It's actually fee simple land. It's not a dedicated park like a lot of other parks in Clearwater, which actually means you can do anything with it. Which, when we start talking about cans of worms to open,
I've heard other worms that could be.
So it's really, then we can start talking about things like pickleball.
And my daughter loves pickleball. I've
Yeah.
been
So just when you start going into these things, and I fully expect this park, as CEO Johnson has said, the center of town, our central park, will probably see even more development over the next few years with other types of facilities and other needs, and with the official community plan and the zoning conversation we had before this meeting, that area, as we know, whether people want it or not, is going to be the hub of town, is going to be the new center of town. Everything around that roundabout is going to be that way. So I think we have multiple interesting conversations coming up over the next few years. So
My final one is the other thing that had swayed me for this is seeing the number of travelers that stopped and used the CSS field. And I felt that was a really awful use of a space that kids clearly use, and that perhaps that might offset it, because that's a covetous place, especially in the spring and summer. You've got all those 300 kids now that are playing youth soccer. I may be making that up, but those fields seem full, and it's abused and it's not taken care of. Now we actually have a dedicated place. So there was some protection within a close area off the highway, given where people are using spaces for dogs. So I want to share that was also weighed in for a decision.
definitely shows that we need.
I can second that with
Some
the
heavy
mailbox.
maintenance.
It's like walking in a landmine around my
Yes,
place.
and there we go. So we will.
Okay, thank you for the conversation. Council will have more to think about this, and we go from here at a future date. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Moving on to the next item, which is adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of June 16th, 2026. Any errors or omissions that anybody sees on that? If not, can I get a mover and a seconder on that? Other than the fact that 2 copies of it were included in your agenda package. Moved by Councillor Matheson, seconded by Councillor Herring. All those in favor, and that passes. We have nothing under 9, 10, 11, or 12. You do have mayor's report on your desk. I will go through a few highlights. Attended a couple of the Robson North Thompson Valley Foliars Coalition Zoom call. There's actually another one scheduled for today during this meeting. This is an interesting group because it's looking at creating forest access to forest products for small scale operators and people that want to do things in towns like ours, like Mount Robson, like Valemount, McBride, and that sort of thing, allowing them to get access to parts of the fiber basket that they haven't been to up to this point. People like Nest and people that want to build pallets and wood pellets and things like that that are not part of the lumber product thing. So I've been on a couple of things to do with housing the last little while. One of the more interesting ones was June 26th, where I hosted a session on heating and air conditioning bylaws and policies in BC. This is most related about the heat dome. New Westminster presented there, and if you ever been to New Westminster or live there, there's a lot of single-pane apartment buildings, and this is where a lot of the deaths happen during the heat dome. So there are a lot of people working on air conditioning and heating rights for tenants primarily, that landlords must be able to provide. Sort of the line is cool the place to 27 degrees for at least half of the day. Because that is the point where heat stroke and things like that kicks in if you can't get your apartment cooled down to that sort of thing. Two events, one hosted by the District of Clearwater, Chance Breckenridge, our Fire Smart Coordinator, about wildfires. That was an excellent regional event where we had fire chiefs from the TNRD head office, as well as forest companies and all sorts of other people at the table talking about all the resources that we have for wildfire fighting and activities. A really interesting part of that discussion from that day was having the amateur radio clubs show up. And there is actually multiple layers of private radio or club-owned radio transmitters and systems going in to cover Wellsgrey Park and other areas that have never actually been covered by radio signals before. And this is all for emergency management as well as wildfire. So there's some really interesting work and some really interesting donations going on there. The big wildfire mitigation summit hosted by Wellsgrey Community Forest on July 6th and 7th was fantastic. Casey McCauley and his new staffer brought in guests. I think there was 35 or 40 people in attendance. These are top-notch speakers and forestry professionals from across the province. All came into the room and to talk about specifically wildfire risks around urban and rural centers like we have here, sort of the sprawl, so both Clearwater and the areas up into the valley on either side. There was field sessions at Spahats, North Thompson Park, looking at areas that need to be fuel managed and ones that haven't been fuel managed. And also a demonstration by Volk and Kyler Miller and his group, as well as some other people on various sort of low impact thinning and logging operations that can be done and that should be done within the boundaries of the District of Clearwater on private land. And there was a lot of comments by really high thought of and experienced people, not just on the forest side, but also from people that are there to preserve water systems and flora and fauna systems within ecosystems, who are actually, most of them were on the same page about the need to do fuel reduction for fire smart purposes around and in small towns. So it was a fantastic summit. I basically left it going, I should get an honorary degree in forest management from the amount of brain power and knowledge that was thrown on this table for those 2 days. Had some conversations about Trans Mountain project when that news came out. Hospital board meetings, a whole bunch of other things going on. You can read about that in the summary. And then discussions with Yellowhead Community Services last week, a week or so ago, on community services and what they see the future of our region as. And I'll leave it there for now, but the report will be in the next minutes for the next meeting. Moving on to Councillor Bratton.
Good afternoon. Am I on? Oh, I think I am. Started off with Canada Day. Good job, team. We all did a great, everybody that could come. And thank you, Ms. Culp and her team for organizing such a great day. Even though it decided to torrential downpour before we got there, and it still turned out absolutely fantastic. The community came out in droves, which was wonderful to see. Thank you to staff for putting up delineators up to discourage vehicle traffic on our foot bike path up by Timmy's. I really appreciate that. Maybe they'll stop doing that. And the RV signs are working fantastic. I love them. They're, if you can't read English, they're very telltale of what you're to do in 600 meters or 800 meters and here. The only thing I did notice today, there was 3 that were staying overnight. So I'm not sure if we'll have to watch that or if it becomes habitual. Something else to be aware of. Anyways. Myrtle Crescent Park Drive intersection. It's my little love right now. The principal has given me an option of borrowing 3 delineators to put by the stop sign on the high school side so that people can stop turning right when you're trying to go straight or turn left. And there's quite a large space there. So if we could take it up with delineators, Darren Coates is your contact if you'd like to talk to him, or me and then him. And I am going to bounce off of what Ms. Bonnemer was talking about. And actually, Councillor Sim had brought up an idea on a little beautification project of Dutch Lake bathrooms. And if we could put hooks, toilet seats, and a sink that doesn't leak, I'm sure that could fit in some budget somewhere. Possibly, and less prison-like. The floor could be painted. I don't know. I'm just going with easy, inexpensive, and still look really great to a high-used building would be less embarrassing. Anyways, that's my thought. Also, the ballpark bathrooms help. I'm just gonna...
Bathrooms are thing, and you know, and as somebody who ran public bathrooms at Spahats and elsewhere,
Yeah.
I think we get into the belief that they are going to be damaged and vandalized all the time, and it doesn't actually happen as much as we think they do. And ours were designed, Florida prison to Saskatchewan prison with a paint upgrade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to, and it's hard to do these things in the middle of a season.
Totally.
But at the same time, yes, I would like to see this put as a minor council priority in the future, and I'm seeing heads nodding all over the table. I 100% agree.
And I was looking at the strategic planning, not the strategic planning, annual report, and it had in there the bathroom roof was going to be replaced in the future, had nothing to do with other upgrades to the bathrooms. So I was really hoping we could somehow adjust that.
I think staff has noted that.
Okay. Have you heard me now?
I think it's not. You're not the only one that's been whispering in that direction.
I was going somewhere else with that. Anyways, just to let you know, the Children's Art Festival is Thursday, August 6th, and there's more line dancing at the Ski Hill on Tuesday, August 4th.
Okay.
And
cool.
that's all
Thank
I have.
you for that. I see the line dancing is growing.
Yeah.
Councillor Frizzle.
Thank you. I'm just going to go back in time because my seniors forum was on June 26th, and I know I mentioned it at the last meeting, but I was really not here. So I wanted to throw out a thank you to everybody that came and put a booth in that showed the services that they had for the seniors. It included people from Kamloops, Revelstoke, Barrier, and of course Clearwater. And with the BC Communities Responses Network, the Community Paramedics, Interior Health, Clearwater Hospice, the Alzheimer's Society, PharmaSave, the Men's Sheds came, the United Way, Yellowhead Community Services, Fire Smart, and the fire department and District of Clearwater all showed up. And I'd like to extend a special thank you to Cruise in Clearwater for letting us use their golf cart to bring people up from the parking lot to the event, so they didn't have to worry about walking that distance. It was great. They all reported great participation from the seniors, of which there was about 120, and then added on, there was probably 140, 150 people at this event. And I really want to thank the Seniors Advocate for coming. And not only did he come to do a talk to the seniors, he came in and he went to each booth and talked to each member there and asked what they were there for, what they're doing, what their needs were. We had people come from Logan Lake who had a very specific concern, and they talked for a while, and her concerns are being met. And then he made his talk, and he brought it all together in a speech that he had no notes. And it was amazing, and I was very impressed. And so I just want to thank everybody that attended, everybody that came to the booth, and thanks to the Seniors Advocate. I just needed to say that. And thank you, everybody that came out to Canada Day, because really, who wanted to come out in that rain? But everybody did, and it looked like everybody had a good time. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
It's to that.
To
Yeah.
point on that one, go ahead, quickly.
Well, sorry, and I forgot to thank Councillor Bratton for taking a whole bunch of pictures, and it was lots of really great pictures were shown. Sorry, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't mean that, but I just wanted to tag on to your the seniors forum. Right after that, I had a call from someone who has a challenging situation, and I was able to collect a bunch of handouts and provide it for them, so they were directed to some support. So there you go.
Thank you. Thank you for that and comments. Councillor Herring.
Enjoyed seeing everybody out at the Canada Day barbecue. So nice. I know the weather wasn't the best, so it was so great that people could make it anyways. And the only other thing, just to lend a voice to what you're saying about the bathroom, I recently went to both Barrier and Blue River and used their park facility, and we're suffering by comparison significantly. And I understand that there's other funding models and we have constraints like roads, but if the TNRD, if all these other areas can fund an appropriate bathroom, that is something that, as a tourism destination, I think is noticed, right? Those RVs can find a cleaner bathroom virtually anywhere.
I think just to do equal or better, or actually better than Barrier and Blue River is incentive enough for me.
Right? Because they're kicking our butts right now. So
Yeah.
we can move in that direction. And that's it for me.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. Relatively quiet start to the summer for me, but first off, I'd like to welcome back Miss Campbell back into her position here right into the heart of the rat race. So, hope you enjoyed your time off. I was sure it was needed. Like the rest of the crew, took part in the annual Canada Day celebration, even though Mother Nature didn't cooperate. Community members and volunteers all made the best of it, and it's always a pleasure to work with my colleagues in an environment aside from here. To go out, talk things aside from council business, and be human for a few hours. I enjoy that. I look forward to that every year. Miss Culp and Miss Creed and their band of volunteers that organized that. It was yet another successful Canada Day, so thank you to them as well. It's been covered, but thanking staff for the signage on Dutch Lake Corridor. In my travels, at least, it's nice to finally not see RVs parking along the roadway and they're taking 37 East. So bigger sign, an RV, not just something you got to read. I made a big difference, and I appreciate staff for doing that. Also recognize our local fire department for their 3 successful, or 2.5 so far, successful deployments with the IA crew. Not only is it going to provide opportunity to generate revenue for the guys in our department, it also provides a very valuable hands-on experience, as we all know that no two fires are the same. Different landscapes, different areas. It's a win-win no matter how I look at it myself. Another one, Mac River, for keeping our parks dialed in as we're coming into our busy season. I think they've always done a great job in, the landscaping aspect of things and beautifying our entrances to town, our parks, everything else. So I want to thank them for that. Public Works Foreman, Mr. Williscroft, for his getting an email sent to us, appreciating his work, his care, his thoroughness, everything else through a job. That goes a long way when people actually take the time to say things like that. It's easy to tell him when he leaves your property, but to actually make it known and send it out to us, it just goes a long way, and I appreciate to see their staff is looked at like that. And a reminder about the district sewer flushing going on. If you're on the town system this week, they're flushing, so anyone in that area, be aware of that. And I'm sure there's more things, but everything else I wrote down is for the end. So, thank you.
And when's the car show?
Oh, that was one of them. Yeah. Car show, August 23rd, 22nd, 23rd weekend. Again, we're going to be having this roadway closed down just like last year. And from what I saw, it seemed to go off without a hitch. A few hours out of the day, everything went well. So August 22nd, 23rd.
Thank you. Councillor Matheson.
Not a lot to report. I did everything doggy for the last 3 or 4 weeks. The Clearwater Humane Society, I'll just mention that they're having a bit of a fundraiser on Sunday, August 2nd at 12 p.m. on Tuya Creek Road, just outside of Littleport there at the Fox and Maple campsite. And they're going to be having a silent auction, kids activities and barbecues and camping, things like that. So if you want to support a great organization, I think it's a worthwhile day to spend. You could even camp out there. The second thing is, I guess it's kind of speaking to the need of water meters in this community. I did have a conversation with Doug Trotter about his leak that they had at the building and at IWE. The leak that they uncovered was massive, and it had been leaking for years and years and years and years and years. It was like a 2-inch line, and it was probably ruptured when they installed it into the building originally, and it was disappearing water into the ground forever. When they actually fixed the leak and hooked it back up, the water pressure actually blew the toilets up and a few other things in the building because they weren't prepared for that pressure. So they never had used their pressure valve up until that time. So I can't even imagine over the last 20 years how many gallons of water we've lost on that leak alone. So that speaks really highly to our need for water meters. So, and yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Sim.
It's always so hard going last on a busy summer.
Next week I can switch it up and go, you can start.
I've been waiting for 4 years for that, but so just certainly there's been lots going on, but I wouldn't want this meeting to go past without acknowledging the passing of Clara Ritzy, who was just a huge important pioneer and part of the Upper Clearwater history. Jerry the Moose, I think, is attributed to eating the pies off her windowsill. And so much of what was done, she was a big part of it, a big pioneering family, and it is a very sad loss for that. Followed very closely by Helen Knight. And for anybody who knew Helen Knight, you couldn't meet Helen without smiling yourself, because that's what she perpetually did. And she had the most beautiful way of engaging young people into the importance of forestry and forestry ecology, as well as believing that art really mattered to people. She was a lovely, kind-spirited person who had a lot of impact on this area. And third is the passing of Chuck Emery. And while he maybe didn't have some of the same influences that the women had, he was a man that when he spoke, you listened, and you listened to his experience in the valley, and just somebody who always laughed when we talked about roads, because he was here when a number of them were built, and just reminded us that maybe they weren't built the way we're thinking that they were built. And I think it just speaks to the fact that we do have facilities like Forest View so people can phase through. Anyway, it is difficult to watch the passing of so many people who are so important to this community.
Chuck Emery, he trained a lot of firefighters in this whole area, and he was, and so he contributed a lot to this community.
Absolutely. Also just want to speak to the success of music nights and why it's really important for council to make sure that they always get out and enjoy things. And I'm going to say that I have been guilty of music nights because I always wondered about, well, why didn't we collect more donations in a more strategic way? And after speaking to the organizer, she said, I don't want donations. She said, I don't want to rely on donations. She said, I want everybody to be able to experience live music and not have to worry about that. And when she phrased it like that, and then when we talked about it, and it's a low barrier event to expose people to something that we don't have a lot of in this community, and why there's value with that. The same thing with the Children's Festival. So any way that we can supplement what we offer for our people because of where we are, it's really important to consider that way. So I do appreciate sort of the reframing. Also, great success, Slow Pitch in this town. Holy camole, is that ever a big community with just so much support and vigor and enthusiasm, and I want to thank them for, filling our off season with so much tournament teams. And I'm excited to talk in a new business about the U13 team that's going to Terrace. That's kind of a big deal to go to provincials. And it's also really nice because there's been a long-standing history of Clearwater teams heading to provincials. So to see that revived, I do want to just have a particular shout out to Tara Carter, who made sure that after COVID, slow pitch continued. Farmers Market has also been growing and with great success. And so with that, the Farmers Market, then music night, and also even with the dog park is just really watching that the success of things doesn't happen to people, and to be mindful about how we could maybe do some more messaging around parking, and that to block off the neighborhoods, so for closer access, now that we do have 37 East, which I hope we will rename, maybe we can do more about making that a more viable option so that we aren't impacting our communities from that front. We've said a huge thanks to Leanne Culp and her team. She really is magnificent, especially at this time of year. Kids camp, swimming lessons, all sorts of things, and the fact that she pulled off Canada Day and made it look effortless is great. Lastly, to our small businesses, Brickfront celebrating their first year anniversary. Yeah, which is also kind of a big deal because we look about that corridor in that area of town and how it has really become quite an anchor economic feature for us. And I think that's about it. And just to say, yeah, that RV signage, it's just been a game changer.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. Just a note, because you triggered it talking about some of the people in this town. One of the former, if you don't know, the RCMP musical ride is coming to Barrier. And Ed Noble, who used to be an employee of mine and a pain in the ass, was also a former RCMP member and a member of the musical ride and will be honored at the event. So I was kind of going, am I going to this? I don't know if I want to. And it was encouraged because Ed specifically would be honored there for that. So I just
the tickets, you can buy your tickets online. They're $15. Like, it's kind of a big deal to have this come. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's mid-August.
It's August 21st. I
thought it was 16th
it's on the
or
Friday or something.
Anyways,
yeah.
Anyways, look it up. Anything from CAO on CEO report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple things to report. With regards to the Myrtle Crescent Park Drive intersection, so we have had some conversations with ICBC around potentially putting in some flashing crosswalk lights there, flashing speed sign versus the one what's sitting there. And ICBC also said they would be interested in coming and doing some public education with students at the school, so they're not glued to their iPhones when they're crossing the street and they're actually paying attention. And then as well, we district staff did some trimming back of some of the shrubberies and stuff that were around that corner. I think improving the line of sight on there a little bit. So those were some things that we moved forward on. Cruise in Clearwater, we've already talked about. That was approved at the staff level, and as Councillor McKenzie noted, it's for August 23rd. A donor tree conversation, we had it in council last meeting, so Ms. Lodge was up last week and we talked about various locations in the DLCC, and we're just narrowing it down to, there's probably one location on the entrance hall there that makes the most sense. We're just finishing off on that conversation to make sure it's in the right location. Water quality testing down at the beach has been ongoing. I know we have a lot of residents using it. Maybe on the hot days, perhaps even 55% of them, but it's being packed. So water quality is really being mostly perfect, the testing this year. There's a couple of days where the numbers, and it's primarily testing for E. coli, so a couple of days the numbers crept up a little bit, but then went back down again. So whether that was a weather event or maybe some of the birds being around right close to when the water was being tested, but it's clearly acceptable for this year, so it's good. Annual report. I just want to make a shout out to Councillor Bratton for mentioning she read the annual report. Thank you. So, but that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
And just to let council know, this will be All Byron All the Time show today because other people have been drawn away. So we'll move on to item 16.
Oh, actually, I have a couple of things because they weren't covered in the CAO report, if I could. I just wanted-
questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I'm just looking to see how things are coming with the election officers, given staff members.
We will be talking about that in camera.
Okay, and then information on the election. I noticed that other municipalities have been popping that up, and I don't know what our plans are here.
Yeah, and some information is now just coming out from the province, and we'll be popping that up ASAP. And as well, the intent is to do a bit of a session for people who are considering running for council as well. That's important for people to get their questions answered as far as what's the time commitment and all the rest of it, right? So.
The next one is, and it was kind of brought up with the people who just presented on the dog park, is just with our bylaw summary, and especially with the aggressive dogs, is how do we understand what the process is? Like, is it they can go to the home and they can say, hey, you've got to keep it, on a leash or whatever, and if it gets off, then what? Like, what are the consequences, or how do people feel encouraged by our bylaw process, or what needs to be included, or what isn't here? So, for example, somebody had said if we had like a pound or something, there could be a removal of dangerous dogs. So, I'm just wondering, it's clearly sparking up around the community. I wondered if you could speak to that, or if it could be something that could be published.
Thank you. I actually like the idea of publishing that as far as what the process is. And our bylaw officer does a really great job with dogs. His goal is to correct behaviors other than just issuing fines. So he's seeing progress on a lot of files, but I think it's important for the public to understand what that process is. So I'm happy to prepare a little briefing paper, or have our bylaw officer prepare a briefing paper about what the process is, and we can put that out for the public, right?
Yeah, and it does tie in again that there were some concerns about the new dog park, and what can people expect from us? And then, great, we've put it out there. And then lastly, for the August 23rd event, it's been mentioned that there is going to be a road closure. Can you tell me how road closures are addressed? So there used to be a past practice where road closures would actually come to council. It came to council last year. Do they then go to a staff level and it becomes in perpetuity? And to be clear, I love the event. I thought it went over really, really well last year. But I am just wondering, how is it reviewed? Because if it doesn't meet objectives, or if there are some complications, does it come back to council ever again, or no?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So our road closures are approved by the Director of Public Works, Director of Operations, and that is as per bylaw number 160, where he's assigned the authority to do that, and it's for time limited events. He has the authority to close those roads, as well as a lot of other authorities under that bylaw. What our practice has been is the first time an event happens, or an event changes. So last year, the venue changed for the car show. So we brought that to council to gather input to see if that's something where council wants to go. Then we gathered some feedback after the process, and it was, frankly, last year it was all positive. I didn't hear any concerns or negative feedback. So at that point in time, it just reverts back to being a staff approval. If we hear that this is turning into a significant issue, or there's a problem, then we would, if it's too bad, we would refuse it from a staff perspective, or again, return it back to council.
Okay, and that sounds great, because it sounds like there's that review process, always just being mindful that we don't do things to community, we do it for community. And
absolutely,
there is that feedback loop. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Johnson on the report, or anything that's come up? I get to talk to him all the time, so. Moving on to 16.1, because you're going to get to do lots of talking. Fire equipment personal deployment policy 2202 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm up for the next 5 or 6 reports. So I don't miss anything, because I didn't generate the reports. I think I'll just read them verbatim, if that's okay. So the first policy is a fire equipment deployment policy. This is from Chief Smith, and it relates to when we send our fire equipment out beyond our boundaries. So the issue with the old policy that we had, there was a few issues, but one of the main issues that we're trying to correct here is that we had a bit of a cumbersome process for getting approvals to send fire equipment out. The cumbersome process was for sending it out beyond 200-kilometer radius would take the fire chief would consult with myself, who would consult with the mayor or acting mayor. We would have a consultation, and then we would send that out, or not send out the fire apparatus, depending on the situation, which may be in the individual case, depending on the weather conditions, the amount of fire apparatus available, and the amount of crew available. We're changing that process, and the process we're changing it, or we're suggesting that council change it to, is that first, within that longer distance, so the deployment with the province is Wildfire BC. The suggestion is that we change it to that deployment is made with the fire chief consulting with the CAO or the deputy CAO. At that point in time, the CAO will be asking the fire chief about, okay, how are the weather conditions locally? Are we leaving enough personnel behind to make sure that Clearwater is fully protected? Are we leaving enough apparatus behind to make sure that Clearwater is fully protected? Because that's our first goal. And if those all meet get a check mark on those three areas, then the CAO will give permission to the fire chief to send out that apparatus. At the same time, the CAO will contact council and just let them know of what's happening with fire callouts. And I know you've received a few from me recently where we had vehicle or equipment on standby. We also had an earlier call out of the IA team, and currently we have a call out for our bush truck 1 with a structural protection crew in that. So that's the process we're suggesting that we change to for the longer distance call outs. Within 200-kilometer radius, so the ones right near to the community, we're suggesting that the fire chief is able to send out equipment and crews to those as soon as he gets the call from BC Wildfire. So he does. He gets a call from BC Wildfire. He goes out. He lets me know. He's not seeking my permission in advance. He lets me know. I would again let council know, of course. Then the final category is under mutual aid, where that's unchanged. We have mutual aid agreements or just straight aid agreements with other local governments that we go out based on what that contract language in the mutual aid agreement says. So the advantages to us sending out crews, there's a number of them. Number one is our fire crews get experience with wildfires. They get experience with wildfires, both interface fires and actual just straight bushfires. Both are really good experience. Number two, they get experience working with BC Wildfire. So they get to see the structures in place, work within the management team, work with other fire departments, and develop a better sense of that interoperability of various fire departments. Number three, it's great for the financial sustainability. And as council will no doubt remember, when we put the IA team together, we specifically said that our vision for long-term financial sustainability for that team would be some of the revenues generated from sending teams out. And it does help to make that more financially sustainable. There's no guarantee in any given year, but the vision there is to be able to pay for the ongoing training that we need, pay for equipment, and eventually pay for apparatus replacement with the revenues received from going outside. And then the fourth benefit, of course, from sending teams out is helping neighboring communities. And I don't think you can understate that, because I know if we're in a situation where we needed that, how local residents would appreciate that as well. So I think there's some really significant benefits there. The changes we're talking are not all that substantive of changes. I think we just want to make sure that it's fully legalized, the process we want to go to, from the perspective of someone later can't say, hey, you didn't quite follow protocol there. We'd rather this just be locked in place, right? Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on this? I do note today that Fire Chief Smith is, because we're testing systems, there was a fault in a radio, and Fire Chief Smith has gone to help the crew that has been deployed get back up to speed with communications. It was not a complete fault, so you know, this is why we do this. Anyways, I think I saw Councillor Sims' hand come up.
Yeah, I do. Thanks. And so comparing the two policies, I was interested because in the previous policy there was a lot more reference to the Office of the Fire Commissioner, and now there's a lot more for BCWS. Is that in reflection to how just things have evolved in the province?
So that's a reflection on how the province manages the wildfire.
Okay. And the second one is on page 2 of the report. The policy governs Clearwater's internal authority to release district resources in response to the provincial request. And I'm just making sure that the district resources are considered the fire apparatus as well as human resources, or it's not a financial resource?
The resources are the fire apparatus, the equipment we use, the working capital we use to fund, you know, fuel for the fire trucks, and then the actual people who go out are our human resource. And there are human resource, and they get paid by the wildfire service on an hourly basis when they're out. And we've actually made a change. We used to reimburse all those call outs on a once a year basis. Now we're saying this is happening more regularly. We're going to include them for getting paid on a 2 week basis, same as our regular employees, even though they are a kind of a special class of employees. But so that's all the resources that are getting deployed.
Thanks. And that leads into, it also notes that personnel and payroll, and so to clarify that district staff who are also fire department members must use vacation time or unpaid leave for deployment participation unless otherwise authorized, and must submit timesheets as required. But that allows them to have the reimbursement, so it's essentially not a twofold payment. Is that right? Or what happens there?
That's correct. So if we have an employee who's a regular employee who goes out and they're getting paid by BC Wildfire Service, and at that time they're not providing services to the district, it wouldn't be appropriate for the district to pay them as well. So then they would use vacation. If they did not have enough vacation time to use it, they could take leave of absence to do that.
Okay, and then the last one is just that it's been the removal of so there's been a removal of the fact that the deployment distance, it doesn't have the requirement for the mayor or acting mayor consultation. So this really operationalizes it a lot more. Is that what
It operationalizes it. I think if anything, it makes it a bit of a more expedient response.
Okay.
Where I can have a call with Mike. We just go through what the key issues are, and then boom, he goes.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also take the political out of that decision.
Absolutely.
You know, I really appreciate the position we're in after making this decision as a council a year or so ago to create the initial attack crew and the Fire Smart crew and all these crews or all these resources that have allowed us to finally be one of those municipalities that sends people to the assistance of others. Because I think that, you know, sooner or later it's going to be us, and we need those people to be willing to come to us, and fully understanding that the BC Wildfire Service and, you know, the coordination of EMBC, Emergency Management BC, is going to you know, make those requests on our behalf and do some of that work. But it's important to be part of that provincial team that does these things, and I think that's where the big win is on all of this, beyond all the things that Councillor McKenzie has spoken and you've spoken and Councillor Sim has spoken about. So there is a recommendation. The council approve amendments to policy 2202, fire and equipment personnel deployment policy, substantially in the form of the attached to this report. Councillor Sim, are you moving that?
So moved.
Seconded by Councillor Herring. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. Moving on to 16.2, financial update to March 2026. This is fairly basic. Ms. Glassen is away on holiday, I believe. But if there are any questions or comments from, do you want to talk all day or, you know?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I'm just so happy to have a captive audience. So the quarterly financial report, the first one in the year, as council is probably very aware of, the numbers are skewed. A lot of our costs are annual type costs. A lot of our revenues are annual revenues. And we don't do quarterly closes to our books. So we don't do accruals for all the expenses. So in particular, the first one is not an accurate reflection. And as you move forward, they get to be better and better throughout the year. So I'm just laying it on the table. And if council has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Ed, Councillor Sim.
So just also, so one question that I had, which is, what does the project status mean of inactive, active? And so it's just that it was not active in that quarter, but it is not canceled. And just so if anybody reads that, it could be misconstrued. It just hasn't been activated.
As you know, on the next point where we talk about active, so it's active. But yeah. Any further questions or comments?
No.
No. So I believe Ms. Kimmel was going to present today, but I believe she also has a conflicting council meeting today. But go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is the engagement plan related to the ETSI grant, which council received. Council applied for and received a $25,000 ETSI grant pertaining to reviewing our previous economic development plans, gleaning the best ideas from those plans, and then having an engagement process with the community. And she does a great job in this report, Julie does, of outlining who the various stakeholder groups, what her engagement process would be like. And that was really the point of this report, to give council the ability to look at it and say, yeah, we think it's covered off, or if there's any other engagement you think should be part of this project. Julie Kimmel, who got the PO for this work, has got experience doing engagement in Clearwater, and for quite a while, working on other economic development project for us. So I think she'll do a really great job with this. This was basically just to lay it out for council. If you have any comments or want to change the engagement, I'm happy to provide that feedback back to Julie.
Yeah, and I think on this one, there's a lot to read into here, and I see people scanning it. Go through it, submit comments to the CAO via email, and then he can, next time that Julie is available to meet with council, I'm sure we can sit down and do that, but get the process going by submitting email comments. Okay.
I think Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Matheson.
Are we looking at a start date for this, or is there when it's going to kick off?
Are you talking specifically to public consultation and that sort of thing? I think she's just laying this out at this point for you to see, and then if council has no significant comments or changes, then she can probably move on to the next phase. So, but yes, go ahead. I mean, I can't speak for her, but go ahead, Mr. Johnson, if you would like to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll report back that start date, what the actual specific timeline is, because I know she was working on that. And then the one other piece I need related to this is that the resolution under 16.3 that the District of Clearwater Council approve a 2026 budget amendment to include the Clearwater Economic Development Roadmap Project for $25,000 funded by the confirmed ETSI-BC grant revenue.
Okay. Somebody want to move and second
So
that?
I will move it, but I also wouldn't mind sharing some comments for feedback, noting if that's all right.
You're moving it?
I will move it, but I want to go back to
Okay.
the comments, please. So I'm moving the recommendation to make the amendment.
Might as well, if you're going to move it, how about you make your comments first?
Sure.
And then move it, and then you can just move it second.
So in there, and going through it, is there was comments about home-based businesses, but I really would be interested in knowing if council was wanting to learn more about our remote workers, because that is something that seems to be a growing workforce and it's not captured, and I'd like to hear more about it, and I think that this ECDEV could capture that. the other thing is around the key messaging is shape the future. We haven't been really robust with our economic development funding formulas. So just, do we level set about what people can actually really expect from the district on that? Like to have all of the information. We've had 2 very robust economic development plans before. What's going to be different about this? And so looking for that for some of the messaging is how we grow. That ties into the fact that a lot of our zoning, that we're doing the work right now, that shapes a lot of our economic development and who will be attracted here. So wondering to capture those thoughts. And then the last one was, there was a lot on tourism, which is important. But we don't say a lot more about other sectors like forestry contractors. So we focus on tourism operators, but not the other. And again, this was a great area for remote workers and what might attract them. Under barriers, should we add the infrastructure? It says broadband and internet, but should we also be adding cell phone service for some sectors that are finding that? So again, getting that feedback. What is holding us back? Is cell phone one of them? And then future opportunities, we say forestry and forestry innovations. And instead of tourism promotion, maybe industry or sector promotion. So it's not so heavily focused just on tourism. We are seeing news out of Prince George, and we are seeing some ripple effects. We do seem to have a very active Wells Grey Community Forest that is looking for those innovations, looking for some of those forestry. As far as I'm concerned, it's still part of our economic makeup. And I'd like that to have some attention there. And that's it.
Yeah, thanks. I think that can be added into some of the comments in the survey. I agree with you on the forestry one. That's why it's so great to have this Robinson and North Thompson Forestry Coalition. Kim Moneyman's a local contact on that. I encourage any of you, if you run into her, to have a conversation about that. And then, yeah, the rest of it, it's fine. Any further comments or questions on this? So would you like to move that now, Councillor Sim?
I can move the recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Frizzle. Okay, all those in favor? And that passes. And the ginormous lump of dead trees and incredibly important knowledge and work that is laid out in the District of Clearwater 2025 annual report. There is a recommendation, but I'll let Mr. Johnson speak to it if he so desires. The annual report is something we do every year, but it has a really important function. There is a lot of highlights in it, but there's also a lot of data and it hints at the work that has been done. I mean, I used to do this for my business as well, an annual report for submission to the BC government. It proves, if you want to go through this, what we actually do for services and for our citizens, and spells it out department by department and priority by priority. So I'll leave it there, but go ahead if you want to add.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think I can add to that. That was such a great introduction. But if we could just, the recommendation is that council adopts the 2025 annual report as presented.
Oh, wait.
But wait, there's more.
Appreciate the information. 2 comments. One, I really appreciate the fact that there's a summary of 2025, but it also outlines what the citizens can expect for 2026. So I thought that was a really clear roadmap. It tied into operational plans and also our budget. Just not to be outdone by Councillor Bratton, who seemed to read this, I want to just talk about the 37 East. And it talks about the fact that it's going to be sort of RV parking. Over the past several years, and it's also home to the Cenotaph and extra parking for the beach and community center. But at this council table, we've also asked that that area be identified as the parking for the trailhead access for the river trail. And I just want to make sure that that still is actually being considered. That end of the road by Dutch Lake, it is getting more and more use. I've been sort of going by just checking, is that just a one-off? But it's regular. And then when you hear about the impacts of that Dutch Lake area, and they talk about some of the speeds getting of the RVs going into the resort, plus the farmers market, plus the music nights, plus extra traffic, I just want to make sure 37 East is going to be a trailhead. We've got the proposal for the Legion crosswalk. We've got those beautiful pathways. It's just set up. Is that the plan?
My understanding is that is still the plan, and that the plan is it would be a trailhead with the trail map and kiosk
Okay.
installed in there.
I just didn't see it in the annual plan, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I think that's come up a couple times. I mean, I told Triangle at this end of it needs to be cleaned up, and I think that
Yeah.
was part of that.
Yeah.
That's- okay.
Thank you.
Further
I'll
questions?
move the recommendation.
Okay, moves.
Oh, sorry.
I just want to say one thing, that Councilor Braxton, only one director.
Yeah.
Starting a trend.
There you go. Are you seconding the? Okay, there we go. All those in favor of acceptance of the adopting the annual report? Okay, leave hands went in the air. I didn't see them all because I was still reading the annual report. Moving on to the young feller in the back here who this relates to, which is development permit DP 2602 for 447 Eden Road. There is a recommendation that this permit be issued. Any comments from staff on this? This is interesting.
So first off, I would like to apologize for the fact that it's a little bit glitchy, our system today, so we could not have Linda on the line. Linda Perotti, our planner from the TNRD, who normally speaks to these really well. But from a staff perspective, we think this looks like a pretty exciting proposal. There are no concerns from a staff perspective. It should be noted that if more buildings and when more buildings happen into the future, that would have to come back for a further development permit. So council will stay engaged. You'll note with this one, there's not any permanent buildings in here. So the goal isn't just to approve it at this stage and then see what happens. The goal is a bit of a phased development, so the business can be developed and then work on next steps after that once they prove out that business. And as mentioned, the proponent is here in the room. John is, and if there's questions for him, that's up to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, no, if you'd like to ask John questions, we can bring him forward. If anybody, I'm not seeing anybody from the table, but I really appreciate the quality of this report and the input. I actually saw John in the hallway as we were in the intermission period there. And I do, on this particular stretch of road, remember receiving a development application that was written in crayon on the back of a piece of ripped off cardboard. You know, we still accepted that and we still went forward with that with a little tweaking and the hard work of our planning staff. But this is great. This is the quality of report and information that makes it really easy, and I'm not going to predetermine council to approve things like this. And I think this is the exact kind of little business projects that we need in this town. Further questions or comments? If not, moved.
Yeah, I love this concept. I've seen it done in other communities, and it's worked so well for tourism and creating that vibe and that sense of community. I love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And are you moving it?
Yeah.
Moving the recommendation? Okay, seconded by Councilor McKenzie. Any further discussion?
Just to say thanks for the creativity and the innovation. And this is exactly, the types of ideas that we need for this community. And the fact that you put in this much time and energy to it and really saw something that maybe hasn't been seen before, just thank you. It's great.
Given that time and energy, it just begun.
Yeah.
Maybe not more.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor? And that passes. And you're free.
All that for that, John.
Except for all the work that you have to do. So, yes. Thank you so much. Yeah. Moving on to item 16.6, bike park track purchase PO for information.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a straight housekeeping item. Requesting that council approves the purchase order award for the bike park track, which was issued to Parkworks Solutions Corporation for $140,000. Staff did do a straw poll of council to request to be able to go ahead due to the long time frame between meetings in the summertime. The delivery on that, though, at the time the order was placed, was still stated to be 20 to 24 weeks out. We are hoping to get it sooner and hoping possibly to still get it set up this fall.
Wow.
But we'll see. We're working with the supplier, hopefully get it done but it may be a springtime install. So just asking for
So
that
there is a
resolution.
recommendation. It's not listed in the agenda, but it is on the actual report. The council approves the purchase order award for the bike park track issued to Parkworks Solutions Corporation for $140,000, $784, excluding GST. Somebody would like to make that recommendation? Moved. Do we have a seconder on that? Seconded by Councilor McKenzie. Any further discussion? I love this idea. I love the module idea. It's also, if you haven't been up to the splash park area and seen the fire smarting work there, it actually looks really good. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you to staff for the work on this particular project, and I look forward to seeing the feedback from the proponents who wanted this to happen. 16.7, U13 tour to terrace.
Yeah, so this late edition has come as a result of speaking to the U13 team over the weekend, and some of the parents, they had put in a request to the district office for funding. I don't know if that was received or not. So I don't know where it went. Maybe it went to somebody that was on holidays, but there was sort of some urgency to it. The U13 team was very successful in getting to provincials. Like all sport things, you only find out at the last minute, and there's a mad dash for some of the fundraising. So they had applied for the community grant for $1,000 because I guess, staffing we have acknowledged is a bit short. I would like to put it on the table. Motion to donate $1,000 to the U13 slow pitch team through Clearwater Minor Ball Association, and whether that would come from the grant, but we're not following that policy, or if it comes through council contingency.
Comments on how that might be funded?
Yeah.
Off the top of your head, because it is a last minute thing, but actually, Councillor Herring, did you have a further thought? Or? Yeah, I mean, if we could do that for now, but go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I guess my only concern is, what is the policy base around that? I'm not sure. It's a question I would have to ask the Director of Finance. Do we have a policy around funding teams? It tends to be a bit of a slippery slope where teams...
So they are a nonprofit association with a nonprofit number. We have got extensive history of doing that. That has been other ball teams, other hockey teams. So it's within what we've done.
Specifically for tournament championship.
Provincial
Exactly.
stuff,
Yeah.
Championship tournament.
Yeah.
So.
So for clarity then, this is a funding for a tournament or funding to a team going to a tournament?
It's funding to offset the travel. The funding would be received by Clearwater Minor Ball, which is the nonprofit recipient entity. And going through the community grants, it seems to hit that small community grant criteria.
Okay. So just for absolute clarity, they're going to Terrace for provincials?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
Thank you. Just want to get that on the record as to why we're doing this versus regionals or some other thing that might come up. Okay.
It is a big deal, and I think it's just the amount of tournaments that they've brought in, watching their fundraising efforts. It's been really it is incredible, and it is quite a feat what they've accomplished. So because we do have the history. And we've got the precedent, I feel comfortable bringing that motion through, although it would have been nicer if it had come through the granting process. But again, it had been submitted but not received, clearly. And they do leave this week, which is why I'm bringing it here today. That's how fast those turnarounds are for.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Sure. Any further comments or thoughts?
So if I could suggest, and I'm not trying to be a Grinch here, but if I could suggest that we council approve it in principle, and then we do a little bit of policy work around to see if as long as we don't have a policy which says, hey, we don't do that type of work, or we don't do that type of donation, that we do that. And I don't mean that, and again, if we've done it in the past, it's probably fine, but I think that if with an approval in principle, and then we check a little bit of policy.
Yeah, I think that's.
And we'll report back to council, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, yeah. Councillor Herring, were you gonna second that?
Yeah.
Okay, further discussion or comments? Councillor Mattson, no? Okay. All in favor as stated with, Mr. Johnson's comments. Boy, moving on to item 17.1, fees and charges bylaw amendment. There are, well, one long recommendation here and a bylaw change here. Do you wish to speak to this? I guess you do.
Sure, and this is a very minor report. The only reason for this bylaw amendment is because we're putting in new sewer and water bylaws. So by doing that, we lose our fee structure because they're contained in the old bylaw. All we're suggesting is take the existing fees and charges from the old bylaw as outlined in this and put that into the new bylaws. There's no fee increase attached to this at this point. That comes through in the late fall when we do fees and charges bylaw. So this is kind of a housekeeping item again.
Yeah, that's housekeeping. So there are two recommendations here under 17.1. First is that the District of Clearwater Amendment Bylaw number 338, 2026 to amend the District of Clearwater Utilities Service Calls and Connection Fees and Charges Bylaw number 109, 2013 be introduced and read for a first and second time. Does somebody wish to move and second that? Moved by Councillor McKenzie and seconded by Councillor Matheson. District of Clearwater Bylaw number 338, 2026, a bylaw to amend the District of Clearwater Fees and Charges Bylaw number 109, 2013. Whereas Section 137 of the Community Charter provides that the power to adopt and include a bylaw includes the power to amend or repeal it, and whereas the Council of the District of Clearwater wishes to amend the District of Clearwater Fees and Charges Bylaw number 109, 2013, now therefore the Council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembled and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as the District of Clearwater Amendment Bylaw number 338, 2026 to amend the District of Clearwater Fees and Charges Bylaw number 109, 2013. All those in favor? And that passes. And then on to recommendation 2, which is to be read for a third time.
First, second.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, read for a third time. Yeah, I see that's in there. To be read for a third time. So I saw it moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor.
So this is, sorry, just to get caught up here, we are at 17.2 water and sewer bylaws?
we're
Or
at
we are still going to
17
read it for the third time?
We're
Okay,
17.1, splitting that because it's clearly two recommendations.
Okay.
Seconded by Councillor Frizzle. District of Clearwater Bylaw number 338, 2026, a bylaw to amend District of Clearwater Fees and Charges Bylaw number 109, 2013. Whereas Section 137 of the Community Charter provides that the power to adopt a bylaw includes the power to amend or repeal it, and whereas the Council of the District of Clearwater wishes to amend the District of Clearwater Fees and Charges Bylaw number 109, 2013, now therefore the Council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as a District of Clearwater Amendment Bylaw number 338, 2026 to amend the District of Clearwater Fees and Charges Bylaw number 109, 2013. All those in favor? And that passes. Now we move on to the water and sewer bylaws. So there is a recommendation for first, second, and third readings of the water utility bylaw number 339, and the council give first, second, third readings for bylaw number 340 for sewer utilities, and then that council directs staff to bring both bylaws forward for adoption at the next regular council meeting. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson, if you'd like to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we actually have Chris Crowell from True Consulting to talk about these bylaws and what the development process is with these. We, the district engaged True to update these bylaws, and Chad, our Director of Operations, is away this week, so Chris is stepping in.
Thank you for hanging out for the whole afternoon. Fire
Chad
away when
owes
you're
me
ready.
one. Jenna, do you have the slides by chance?
Just give it a second. Currently, the slides are in a different galaxy according to the screen. Oh, there they are.
Okay, yeah, just go to the next one. So, bit of background, and I don't think those will come as any surprise. I think we've alluded to this previously. We are moving forward with the universal water metering project. As part of that, the current bylaw, the water and sewer bylaw, did not have the required mechanisms for installation of water meters and a universal metering program. We took steps to try and update the existing water and sewer bylaw, but they go back to the improvement district days, and it is a combined water and sewer bylaw, which is atypical. So we had to redo the separate and then essentially modernize. So that's where we're at here today. We have a new water utility bylaw and a new sanitary sewer bylaw. Let's go to the next slide. So I'll get into the kind of edits. A lot of it is carryover. So a lot of it was already in the existing bylaw, but there was new things that had to be added. We had to modernize a lot of it, update to current codes. So you can kind of see in there the bit of a step of where we're at, and we've gone through a pretty extensive process with Chad and Byron, and Alcid before he left was also involved in the reviewing and tried to incorporate not just kind of best practices, but implementation side of things, I guess, and feedback from staff on gaps they've seen to date. So that was key things that are kind of captured within the steps that we've done there. Yeah, if we can go to the next one, Janet. So here's some of I would say the modernization pieces. I talked about splitting the two bylaws apart. The old bylaws allowed for users to connect. They were really focused on processes for connection, and there was a lack of guidance, I would say, or verbiage related to enforcement and on compliance and high users and different things like that. So cost recovery. So it was missing a lot of pieces that you would typically see in a water or a sewer connection bylaw. So that is the big thing on the water side. It also draws better correlation between the district's cross connection control bylaw, which is super important from a water system operation perspective, so that these bylaws now speak to one another and reference the appropriate plumbing codes and regulations and things like that. Go to the next slide, Jenna. It talks here about, this is where we get into the water meter pits. So there's really two pieces. One is the bylaw now it mandates water meters. Previously it was more that new construction required meters. So now we do require meters for all properties serviced with water connected to the system. It talks about water conservation and responsibility of the homeowner to use the system in a responsible way. Excessive usage, this isn't meant to micromanage people's water usage, but it will become obvious where the issues. I know Councillor Matheson alluded to a 2-inch water service that's been leaking for who knows how long. Those are the types of things that'll become obvious with the metering. To play that scenario, that person might have refused to allow anybody to fix it, refuse that there's a problem, and so the bylaw would allow for a scenario like that to be resolved. And related to water conservation, alternative water supplies, and these are touching on like very rare scenarios, but when they do come around, in very infrequent times, that's when you'll want to have that clause in the bylaw to refer to. Alternative water supplies, you'll see this with wells on private property where they also want to connect to the district's water system, and it creates a real risk for cross connection, dual source. That's now captured in the water bylaw. Jenna, flip over to the sewer one. The sewer bylaw, you know, it's not going to be metered, and there's going to be less information on usage or anything like that. What we're really concerned about on the sewer side is discharge of basically substances that are going to damage the wastewater plant, and regulation of that. And a lot of the sewer risk is managed via plumbing code and wastewater regulations. But we've dealt with it in the past. There can be scenarios where a single property might discharge a large slug of something, and it can throw the whole wastewater plant on tilt for like a couple months. So you want to have the ability to make sure that if that happens, or there's an obvious impact on the collection system, you'll see it sometimes in the collection system, and it becomes pretty obvious where, you know, which property it's coming from. You want to have the ability to work with that property owner and try and resolve in most cases it's unknowing. Maybe it's an old restaurant with oil and grease and things like that. So it just provides the opportunity for that. We tried to update the impact to the user groups, Jenna, on the next one, because I thought this was relevant. Residential users, it's, you know, shown as low. The big impact here is that residents are going to get water meters. Compliant property owners, again, low. If you have wells, suggest it's moderate. It's more to ensure that the regulation is followed. Industrial users, that's a lot on the sewer side, and just making reference to cross connection control. Food service operations, restaurants, again, like that's tied pretty closely to sewer, and making sure that oil and grit separators are in place. Non-compliant users is higher. I would also say like users that refuse to have a meter or want a meter, the impact would be higher. And really high water users. If there's deemed to be really high water users and a refusal, want to work with district staff in an amicable way to address that. Again, it now allows the opportunity for the district to take the necessary steps on that. So, last slide. Bit of a summary. Had to split the bylaws. It's now more clear. It provides staff with mechanisms to enforce what would be considered best practice in most municipalities in the province. Lines up the cost recovery and enables the water meter project to move forward. That's really what triggered all this. It definitely spiraled once we got into it, with any old bylaw, it typically does. But I think we were probably going to have to revise these at some point anyway. They were clearly outdated. So the water meters just happened to be the trigger.
Yeah, and thanks for that, and I'll go to questions in a second. I know of a couple incidents in the past where the lack of strength in the existing bylaw before we hopefully move this one forward has caused us to not have the teeth to deal with problems that have come up. So as you say, this may have been triggered by the water meter thing. There have been other incidents in the past that have been sort of one-offs that really should have triggered this to be updated in the past. Any questions of Chris on this? Councillor Sim?
Yeah, and because from what I'm understanding, it's now sort of blended, like
Opposite, they're split.
they're split.
They were together before, and now they're split. Yeah.
They may both involve a certain type of water, but they're different types of water.
Yeah.
So for this, and I don't know what, and this is more of a council process, but it's easier to see what the original bylaws were to compare the two. I appreciate the table, but it could be quite significant, and just not wanting to do first, second, and third because I don't know the comparison. Like, it all makes sense, but there is some sensitivity around these meters, and just what are we covering, what are we not covering, what have we missed, what could be conveyed better. And without seeing it, it's just hard to really compare the two, and it's not in our bylaws online either, like our old one.
The differences between the two, is that what you mean?
Well, you could technically, like, with the school board, for example, whenever we bring forward that's a difference, we bring forward the existing one and then do all the markings of where the changes are going to be. So it can be a direct comparison to show where there's the improvements for it. And on this one, because it does seem to be a topic of significance to the community, while we've got a nice chart, I don't know what it was.
Yeah, and that's fair, and I think, and this is maybe a bit of a procedural thing, because we're not amending that bylaw, we're actually bringing 2 new bylaws forward. It's not like we were simply like editing it, you know what I mean? Like, these are 2 new bylaws. I don't know the correct term, but like the other one doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't. You're right.
So
it's
it's not believe me, we tried to start by
yeah.
editing and track changes and went through a pretty iterative process on that. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Well, it solves a bit of a mystery, is because, you know, when you're seeing the chart, it's like, well, am I comparing it to something? But you're saying actually you can't compare it because now we are starting from scratch.
Yeah, like you couldn't adopt these without absolving or deleting the old one, so to speak. Like, this has to happen. Bring these in, take the other one out. If that makes sense.
You can't leave a hole between the two.
Yeah.
Further comments, Mr. Johnson, and then go to Council Frizzle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the reason we're asking for third reading is that we are in a time crunch for this. And the time crunch for this is that we have to have this in place before the installer goes around to installing the actual water meters. So we don't want to install water meters without having the bylaws in place, because we could be challenged on it legally. Like, what are you doing? Where's your bylaw? So with that time frame, if we choose to do less than 3 readings of this, because there must be at least a day between third and fourth reading, if we choose to do less than 3 readings, then we're going to need to book a special council meeting to get that extra reading in there. And I'm fine with that. It can be a quick meeting, but that's the kind of the time crunch that we're on. And just so council is aware, this has been because they're very old bylaws and really important bylaws.
Yep.
It's been a big effort, not only from True, but from staff has been engaged in numerous meetings going through these and trying to make sure they're correct. So it's kind of an all hands on deck trying to get these bylaws through. So I guess my only point is, happy to do less than 3, but we'll need to book a special.
Councilor Frizzle next, and then Councilor Herring.
Just going on I just need clarity on the alternate water supply. If they have a well or cistern on their property, they can still have a well or cistern, but they just have to testable backflow protection. What does that mean? How do you do that?
That's it's mainly covered in the cross connection control bylaw, which alludes to the risks of any property based on the land use. There's a difference between a backflow preventer and a cross connection,
Right.
a testable cross connection device. They have to be tested and certified annually. If you have a well on site, you're probably a larger property owner, used for irrigation or commercial industrial, you're going to be into that higher risk category and need to have this certain cross connection control device. Typically, the district would not want to provide a water service to a property that already has a well because of the risk of those two. If the well has higher pressure than the district system, you're going to be pushing unknown water into the district system. That's the risk we're trying to avoid.
Do you know how many properties do have wells in Clearwater? And
Wells connected to
Wells
connected to their existing water systems. which
I
is,
don't.
You don't?
No, I don't know that. That's the risk.
Yeah.
We don't know.
even most landowners wouldn't do that. I mean, it's usually if they have a well at this point for agriculture, it's a separate system.
Yeah.
But somebody might make that mistake, and that's why we have
Yeah,
action in this.
that's what I just
do this.
wanted that
Yeah.
clarity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, there's multiple episodes of science and forensic factor and whatever else to explain what goes wrong when you do that, if you do that. Councillor Herring?
Yeah, I think this is much needed. It's good to see this kind of come forward. I know that like there's concern out there in the community about sort of overreach, and this is new sort of levels of risk and cost for individual landowners. The thing is this is about protecting the shared resources that we all are a part of, and that's the thing, right? Those grease traps, those things, those will be expensive for some people, and I acknowledge that that's going to hurt for those people, but if not, then it's expensive for the rest of us as our system goes down, as we deal with increased costs, and as we can't afford the infrastructure that we need to support the growth we need. So I think this is awesome. We need to get to this and move to the next stage, get those water meters rolling.
Okay, Councillor Bratton.
Just reading meter refusal and turning it into a pit. Does this pack teeth though? Like, are we able, is this strong enough with all these changes? Will we be able to utilize it and actually say, because of this, you need to do that?
Yeah, correct. So it's a cost recovery model, and if a homeowner refuses the process that both the district and Neptune, the selected water meter installer, and the various mail outs and door knocking, and there's a pretty substantial procedure to try and contact people, because we want to confirm if they're refusing or they're just not, we can't access them.
Right.
We can't get access to them. If it's a refusal, then we will go to a pit meter at property line, and the cost difference tied to that is the responsibility of the property owner.
Okay.
If there will be a level of reason applied to this, but that is and we want them to understand that and make an eyes wide open decision of this, and happy to have discussions with those people to explain risks or concerns about why they might not want an internal meter. And if there's a really good reason why a meter inside isn't needed, well, then we can talk about that. But if there's no justified reason for that other than I just don't want a meter, they're getting a meter one way or another, because 90% of the data doesn't solve the problem. Exactly. One way or another, we want to have meters on every property.
And the company doing the work, they are a good, reputable company?
They've done it for, I think I've talked to 3 other municipalities that are in this works right now: Princeton, Ashcroft, and Valemount.
Okay.
And I believe it's Neptune on all of those. So,
Yeah, I don't know how many they're doing. I know there's the few that you had mentioned.
Yeah.
We're like True's involved in the one in Princeton, for what it's worth.
Okay.
And the feedback's been good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't have any firsthand experience with them, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had some conversations with citizens, and the concern is, oh, well, I have something really weird or whatever. Neptune has been into a lot of people's houses. It's the advantage of using a contractor in this situation, where they are not the municipal bylaw enforcement. They are a contractor doing a service that is to go in there and connect this meter, and, you know, other than extreme violations of health and safety code related to what they're doing, is to do the job and get out of there. They're not there to be nosy.
Yeah.
So, further, Councillor McKenzie.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Blackwell. Yeah, I know, we all know there's been lots of pushback on these, but for our audience and anyone online, I do think it's important to note that passing this bylaw it authorizes installation, inspection, maintenance, reading, and protection of the water meters. Because we pass it, it's not automatically changing our water rates or billing methodology. I think that's important to note too, because that's been the biggest concern with water meters. I know there's some that are probably going to really see the effects of it, but passing this is not automatically change it. Things are going to stay the way they are, giving us the flexibility to adjust them as we see fit.
Thank you. Councillor Sim?
So can you help me, for people who are saying, what if there is a leak on my property? What are my responsibilities? So this bylaw, tell me how that's going to address that.
That's their responsibility to fix their.
So
the
they could
leak
let
on
it,
their
they
property.
could not repair it.
So, and it depends where the leak is. If it's on private property and downstream of the meter, so that we actually know that there's a leak there, because there's still the chunk between the water main and the house it's kind of no man's land still. Now, assuming we know that the leak is on private property, it is the property owner's responsibility to maintain their portion of the infrastructure system, which would be their service. If they don't, I think there's going to be a discussion between the property owner and staff regarding here's what's happening, here is how the impact you're causing, and hopefully there's an education discussion that can help understand what the impact that's having. If that doesn't go anywhere, then there's really two options. There's shut the water off, which causes, frankly, a health and safety concern, and it is likely not what we want to do or what staff would want to do. Two, they go on and fix it themselves, and then the cost of that is borne by the property owner. I don't think that those two scenarios play out. I just can't see that happening. I would hope that people can understand the risk and the concern, and staff would be reasonable with timing and that whole discussion. But there is a requirement for property owners to fix obvious and excessive usage issues. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And you know, and I am always concerned about people. It's like a roof or something. And if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. And you know you've got this problem and what to do about it. And then how is it, you know, and so there is a tendency, and we know from the OCP and everything, we know our medium income levels. So fixing these types of things, I just want to know what the responsibility is and what people can expect. Again, an example of, are we doing it to them or for them? Yes, it's for the greater good of the system and all of that, but I do think about people who are like afraid to even figure that out, or what that cost might be and how to manage it. And I'm looking for that sensitivity. Like
I can recognize that, yeah.
Right? Like all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So just considering that's why I've got some hesitancies about, I didn't realize there had to be such an urgency with this. That wasn't in the report. So I am sort of looking at some of these things and I'm like, I'm not ready for it.
Yeah, and that would just, like, I think it's important to recognize as well, the process of homeowners being responsible to manage their use and all that. That's standard practice. You know, that's not like this is going to be something that's Clearwater specific. I would actually suggest that the fact that that leak maybe has been there for 20 years and has gone unfixed is the Clearwater specific scenario, because in a lot of cases it's unknown because of the underlying gravels and the water going in the ground.
IWE, we just heard that.
Yeah, that's what makes it unique about Clearwater. But the requirement to fix it and maintain the services and the usage, unfortunately, it's pretty normal.
There's also has to be some legal basis under health code as well, because you're allowing the potential of cross-contamination into the water system at those points, especially if our curb stops are not backflow prevention. So there's a health and safety risk there that would need to be dealt with as well. So
yep, there's a number of reasons that
there's
a number of reasons on why it is the normal process. Yeah.
And, you know, and from my understanding of things, and there's actually been a couple of cases where staff have suspected long-term leaks for a long time, and one of them actually just came to light in the last 6 or 7 months, I'm assuming. I don't have that for fact, but I saw a repair being made at a particular location, and yeah, I mean, that one would probably solve a hell of a lot of problems for both the people that are using the water and the District of Clearwater. So Further thoughts or comments?
So when this comes on, and if the cost would then be, if it was to be fixed, and then the cost is extended to the homeowner, do we have a policy of how that's done? Like, does that then get attached to their property tax? Very similar if they don't pay a water bill? Like, what is that process?
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. So the process would be, we would send out water bills first, and then if people do not pay water bills, they do get attached to their property taxes, because it's a service to the property.
I understand that. I'm talking about the repairs. If the leak is discovered, and if the property owner is expected to repair it, or if the district comes in and repairs it on their behalf and gives them the bill, what happens then?
Well, we would need to, I don't think we've been in that situation yet. And I think the expectation would be that the property owner will fix it. I mean, if I had personally as a property owner, if I had the choice of engaging a contractor to do a repair or calling the city to come and do a repair, I think I'd probably hire a contractor.
For sure. And again,
So-
I'm just watching for those people who neither option, because sometimes those things are a luxury, home repairs. They will do their best, and I say that.
So in that case, we will look at the individual circumstances, but at some point, if we do a repair on an individual's property and it's clearly their responsibility, it's not fair to the rest of the taxpayers for the district to pick it up.
I think it probably, without knowing this particular here, was going to be handled the same way that we do with unsightly premises that hit to that mark. We do have a process for that. There's been a couple of cases in Clearwater where the landowner has been given multiple opportunities to clean up unsightly premises, and sometimes years and years. So there's also been a policy of patience on these things with bylaw, but at a certain point, we're still talking about a health and safety issue here, which is, in some cases, has been the case in the unsightly premises, and I expect that staff will follow that same procedure. Okay. Further comments, thoughts, questions? So there are two recommendations. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Just a question on procedure. Can we pass these like this, first, second, and third? I thought you had to do the first, and then you could do second and third, but you couldn't do them all together.
We could do similar to what we did the last bylaw, read first two readings of each and then read the third reading of it.
Yeah, and I think that was wrong too. I think
No,
it should
we're-
be first, and
You're,
then second and
you're
third.
allowed to pass up to 3 readings of a bylaw. There must be 1 day between, at least a minimum of a day between the third
No, I
and
understand
adoption.
that. No, I understand.
You're talking about first and second reading and then third reading?
Yes.
I've seen different, TNRD does it differently.
Okay, so
So,
as
yeah.
long as we're procedurally correct, that's all I don't want it to do this and then we go, but you did it wrong. Now you have to do it again.
Okay. If there's no further questions, we do have two recommendation that council give first, second, third readings. District of Clearwater Utility Bylaw number 339, 2026. And so these are two separate bylaws, so let's break it into two. So do I have a mover and a seconder on that first part? Moved by Councillor Herring, seconded by Councillor Matheson. District of Clearwater, bylaw number 339, 2026. This bylaw regulates the connection to, use of, metering of, and protection of the district's water system. Whereas pursuant to Section 8 of the Community Charter, a municipality may provide any service that council considers necessary or desirable, and may by bylaw regulate, prohibit, and impose requirements in relation to that municipal service. And whereas pursuant to Section 194 of the Community Charter, a council may by bylaw impose a fee payable in respect for all or part of a service of the municipality, and may establish terms and conditions for payment of a fee, including discounts, interest, and penalties. And whereas the Local Government Act, RSBC 1996, Chapter 323 of the Community Charter, SBC 2003, Chapter 26, and all other applicable legislation provide the council may by bylaw establish a municipal water service within the jurisdiction of the District of Clearwater. And whereas council considers it necessary and desirable to regulate the supply, distribution, use, and conservation and metering of water in order to protect public health, the environment, district infrastructure, district employees, and the safe and reliable operation of the water system. Now therefore, the council of the District of Clearwater, an open meeting assemble, and hereby enacts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as the District of Clearwater utility connection and use bylaw number 339, 2026. All those in favor? Those opposed?
In favor, sorry.
Opposed and noted for Councillor Sim.
Yeah, and I do want to explain why I'm opposed. I think it's a great bylaw, and I appreciate all of the positive rationale. I think in the spirit of what Councillor Frizzle was saying is that first reading is generally a tabling or introduction. Second reading is discussion in principle on the content of the bylaw. Third reading, final discussion, including any changes made along the way. This is a relatively new and substantive bylaw, and for me, I'm just not comfortable with the fact that it did not have enough robust discussion on it. I appreciate that there's need for speed for it, but it's not enough for me. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Okay, moving on to the next one, which is that council give first, second, and third readings to District Clearwater Sanitary Sewer Utility Bylaw number 340, 2026, and that council direct staff to bring both bylaws forward for adoption at the next regular council meeting.
Just a note on that, should that say next special meeting? Because you did say we
No,
might need one.
no, we won't if we have done, because
The third reading, okay.
we've done the third reading. Okay. So do I move it in a second?
move it.
Moved Councillor Frizzle, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. District of Clearwater Bylaw number 340, 2026. This bylaw regulates the connection to, use of, discharge into, and the protection of the district's sanitary sewer system. Whereas pursuant to Section 8 of the Community Charter, a municipality may provide any service that council considers necessary or desirable and may by bylaw regulate, prohibit, and impose requirements in relation to the municipal service. And whereas pursuant to Section 194 of the Community Charter, a council may by bylaw impose a fee payable in respect of all or part of a service of the municipality and may establish terms and conditions for payment of a fee, including discounts and interest penalties. And whereas the council consider it necessary and desirable to regulate the collection, conveyance, treatment, and disposal of wastewater in order to protect public health, the environment, district infrastructure, district employees, the sanitary sewer system, and wastewater treatment processes. And whereas council may establish requirements respecting inspection, compliance, remedial action, enforcement, and recovery of costs related to municipal services. Now therefore, the council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembles hereby enacts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as a District of Clearwater Sanitary Sewer Bylaw, Utility Bylaw 340, 2026. All those in favor? And noted as opposed, Councillor Sim?
Yeah, for the same reasons, first, second, and third, and I feel that, you know, I would like to also take this opportunity to say I hope that in the future these types of things could maybe be brought through committee of the whole for those types of discussions and then brought through. But
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, moving on. We go to correspondence information only. There are letters from Silga and the District of Oak Bay. Pretty much everybody has, go ahead, Council.
No, you finished, but it's in regards to the correspondence stuff.
Yeah, okay, yeah, go ahead if you'd like to make a comment, Councilor
Now,
McKenzie.
just curious, I know it says information only, but maybe it was the way I was reading it, but I mean, as recipients of the LGCAP funding stream and members of SILGA, I felt like this was something that needs a letter of support, or is that just me? The way I was reading it.
The pile-on of letters on this sucker is massive. I mean, it's pretty much every local government association, these were discussed at SILGA and organizations like that. Pretty much every local government association is saying the exact same thing. I'm trying to remember the other one that just recently came up in the last year or two, the professional assessment thing.
Yeah, I can't
private
remember
members
the exact
bill.
name of it. I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about
the one
there.
that got all the pushback. This one is in that category. Everybody wants this to happen and we get refunded. So, I mean, we can,
So on that note, should we?
but it's a pile-on that's, you know, already had the discussion at Silga and other places with full
Okay.
group of municipalities, so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, that was just something I was thinking of, that being information only, then
Yeah,
maybe we need.
yeah, I
strengthen
mean, you
numbers
can, if
to-
you wanna put it forward in motion, we can do a letter of support, I'll write one up.
Yeah, let's do that. I
Okay.
feel if we're included in these two entities, we should probably have our name on the list.
If you
I
wanna
feel.
do that, make that motion, do we have a seconder on that? Seconded by Councillor Herring, further discussion? All those-
I think it's a great idea to write this letter, and I'd certainly appreciate sort of the copy of the letter being attached to next agendas, just to document the fact that I like what you're saying, is that, if there's going to be a pylon, and this seems to be quite worthy, that it's documented and demonstrated, and it is
Yeah.
on file.
I just feel we should be a part of it if
Yeah.
we're recipients of the money and we're part of Silgus. We should.
I almost think I've already written a letter on this, but all those in
There
favor?
may have.
So is the motion to direct staff, or that the mayor will write? What is the motion?
I said I'd write the letter, so I'll write the
The
letter.
motion that the mayor.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'll take the template of what's here and do a letter.
Okay, thank
So
you.
all those in favor, and that is done. No notice of a motion, no notices of a motion. It's not an 80s love song. Any questions from the public? Annabelle?
When Chris was up here last,
Yep.
from True Consulting, he said to the mayor, Blackwell, and the district, the councilors and the staff, that you are going to find people that do not want a water meter,
Yes.
okay? In a year's time, they might come back and say they want a water meter.
Yes.
I do not like being controlled of my life and what I want. And also to be forced into having something that I don't wanna do. I'm strongly against it. I've lived here since 1977.
Okay.
And, this is going way too far. I've lost sleep over it, the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
And, I don't like being disciplined, I don't like being told, and also, being told what to do and all this. My neighbors can go out and water at 3:30 in the morning
That's exactly it.
with it pouring rain, nothing's been done. I'm getting disciplined for that, being like honest and reserving water.
Yep.
Like seriously, it hurts, nothing's been done. I came up here, they say, oh, you have to write out something so we can go and get a check. That's a bunch of baloney.
It's general policy to have,
They can do whatever they
do
darn well
complaints
want.
driven
And
on
the people
enforcement.
around them, if I did that, what they're doing, I'd be probably charged.
So just to let you know, in the future, after they get a water meter, if they use excessive water, the intention is not right now to increase water rates, but if they are using excessive water in the future, after we get a good set of data for a couple of years, they would pay more. So they would have a consequence of doing that. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's part of the reason we're doing this. Yeah. Cheryl, do you have a question or comment back there in the corner? I think it's Cheryl.
I'd like, it is Cheryl. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a copy of all of this because as everyone else in the world was doing, I'm working during this time for free. So if you don't mind, Lyle, I'll take yours so I can
They're not
read
one
about
right
it and I
there?
don't have to sit through 3 or 4 hours.
You can just plug us in, and just listen away to
I'm
the.
selling stuff. I
Yeah.
can't just plug you in, but thank you for the offer.
No, afterwards, because you can go back and listen to it.
Yes, but I'd like to zip through the parts I don't want to hear.
I don't blame you.
That's why YouTube is great.
This was the meeting to zip through.
Yeah.
And I agree that things shouldn't be rammed through in 1, 2, and 3 readings. That I have, now that it's brought up and I can speak to it, I think that that is disgusting and cowardly. So that's my thoughts on the whole thing. And I'm sure that my thoughts are the same as 48% of the people that are probably working right now in order to pay their water bill.
Thanks
And
for your
what about
comments.
Modern meters, are they gonna be attached to outside or inside?
Inside.
If they're inside, how the hell are you going to meter, figure out how many liters people are using? I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
I really am,
And I don't want anybody in my house, sorry.
especially when you don't know them.
Then you can do an outside pit meter, but there's a cost for that. So
But we have to pay for that, right?
Yep.
that's correct.
That's correct.
Why don't you do it at the gate? That's where the water comes to my house.
And you can do that, except for you would have to pay for that meter to be installed.
Well, you better put that all out there and how much it's gonna cost, because I imagine a lot of people do not want anyone in their house, even if they love them dearly.
Yeah.
Over something like money.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We do have the need to move into in camera. The council moved to close meeting pursuant to section 91A and section 91C of the community charter to discuss matters related to personal information regarding an individual being considered or for appointment to a municipal position and labor relations or other employee relations. Do I have a mover and a seconder on that?
Move that. Can we take 5?
Yeah, we're gonna take 5. We're just getting through this. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Frizzle. All those in favor? And we're gonna take 10 minutes to